My wife cheated with her personal trainer on my dime, so I gave them a public workout. They'll never forget when I came home early from the hospital and found my wife in our bed with her personal trainer, the one I'd been paying $4,200 a month for. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I smiled, closed the door quietly, and made 3 phone calls. By the time their charity fitness gala arrived 3 months later, I had 200 witnesses ready to see exactly what kind of workout they'd been doing on my dime. Justice was about to get very public. You won't believe what I did next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. The alarm went off at 4:47 a.m., same as it had every weekday for the past 18 years. I reached across the bed to silence it, my hand finding only cool sheets where Sarah should have been sleeping. Empty. Again. I lay there for a moment in the darkness of our bedroom, listening to the distant sound of running water from the guest bathroom. Sarah's morning routine had shifted 6 months ago, up before me, showering in the guest bath instead of our master suite, gone to early yoga before I'd even started my coffee. Dedication, she'd called it when I'd asked about the change. Brad says morning workouts set the tone for the entire day. Brad. Everything was Brad these days. I pulled myself out of bed and walked to the window, looking out over our backyard in the Seattle suburbs. The pool we'd installed 3 summers ago reflected the pre-dawn light, its surface perfectly still. Sarah used to swim with me on Saturday mornings, back when we had time for each other, before Brad had convinced her that swimming was too low impact for her goals. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from the hospital. Dr. Morrison calling in sick. Can you cover his 7 a.m. cardiac catheterization? I typed back, on my way. Another morning, another emergency. After 22 years as a cardiothoracic surgeon at Swedish Medical Center, I'd gotten used to the unpredictable schedule. Sarah had gotten used to it too, in her own way. She'd built an entire life that didn't require my presence. I showered quickly in our master bathroom, the one Sarah no longer used. Her products still lined the counter. $280 face creams, $150 serums, all part of her wellness journey that had started 3 years ago when she'd turned 44. I'd supported it completely. After 18 years of marriage, after she'd quit nursing to support my residency, after all the 60-hour weeks she'd endured alone while I built my career, she deserved to focus on herself. That's what I'd told myself every time another credit card statement arrived. Downstairs, I found a note on the kitchen counter next to my coffee maker. Gone to early session with Brad. Protein smoothie in fridge for you. Don't forget, dinner with the Hendersons tonight at 7. Try to be on time for once. Try to be on time for once. The words stung more than they should have. I'd missed our anniversary dinner 2 months ago because of an emergency triple bypass. She'd told me she understood, but her voice on the phone had been cold, distant. I opened the fridge and found the smoothie, sitting next to a row of expensive organic produce I'd never seen her actually cook. Next to that, a receipt from Brad's Elite Fitness Studio, tucked under a magnet. $4,200 for this month's personalized training package. The number made me pause. $4,200. More than most people paid in rent. I did the math in my head. A habit from years of medical school debt and resident poverty. 12 months at $4,200 meant $5,400 a year on personal training alone. I pulled out my phone and opened our credit card app, something I hadn't checked in months. Sarah handled the household finances. One less thing for you to worry about, she'd said. I trusted her. The screen loaded, showing our American Express balance, $47,328. My coffee went cold in my hand as I scrolled through the charges. Brad's Elite Fitness Studio appeared 47 times in the past 12 months. But it wasn't just the training sessions. Lululemon, $2,000 Sheen on 47. Soul Cycle membership, $30,600 annually. Wellness retreat at Chateau Lake Louise, $8,400. Another wellness retreat at Canyon Ranch, $12,800. Pressed Juicery subscription, $420 monthly. Whole Foods, Whole Foods, Whole Foods, hundreds of dollars per week on organic groceries I never saw her prepare. I kept scrolling, my surgical precision kicking in as I cataloged the financial hemorrhaging. The numbers accumulated, like plaque in an artery, slowly choking off blood flow until something had to give. My phone rang. The hospital again. Dr. Martinez, we need you in OR3. Mr. Patterson's vitals are dropping. I grabbed my keys and headed for the garage, Sarah's note still clutched in my other hand. Try to be on time for once. The irony wasn't lost on me as I sped toward the hospital, toward a life-or-death emergency, while she was somewhere doing burpees with a man whose services cost more per session than most people earned in a day. The surgery took 4 hours. Mr. Patterson's LAD artery had been 90% blocked. Another few days, and he would have had a massive heart attack. By the time I closed him up and briefed his family, it was nearly noon. I sat in the surgeon's lounge, still in my scrubs, eating a cafeteria sandwich that tasted like cardboard. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Sarah, and 1 text. Where are you? The Hendersons are at 7. Don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass her. Not, hope the surgery went well. Not, is your patient okay? Just a command not to embarrass her in front of our neighbors. Dr. Chen sat down across from me, unwrapping his own sad sandwich. Long morning, 4-hour LAD repair. Patterson, he whistled. Lucky you were here. That man's guardian angel works overtime. He took a bite, then nodded at my phone. Trouble at home? I looked at him. This colleague who'd worked beside me for 7 years. We'd saved lives together, lost patients together, but we'd never talked about anything personal. Surgeons didn't. We compartmentalized, stayed focused, kept our personal disasters locked away from the sterile precision of the operating room. My wife spending $4,200 a month on a personal trainer, I heard myself say. Chen's eyebrows rose. Damn, must be one hell of a trainer. Brad, I said the name like a diagnosis. Everything's Brad now. Brad says this, Brad thinks that. Brad's revolutionizing her fitness journey. How long? 3 years of training. But the spending really ramped up in the last 18 months. I pulled up the credit card app again, showing him the balance. $47,000 on one card alone. And that's not counting the wellness retreats. Chen set down his sandwich. His expression changed from casual interest to something more serious. Martinez, I'm going to ask you something as a friend, not a colleague. Go ahead. When was the last time you actually saw your wife? Not passing in the hallway. Actually saw her, spent time with her, knew what she was doing with her day. The question hit harder than I expected. I thought back, counting days, weeks. We had dinner together maybe 2 weeks ago. She's always at training sessions or yoga or meeting friends from the gym. And these wellness retreats. Did you go with her? No. She said they were women only, focused on female empowerment and self-discovery. Chen was quiet for a moment. Brother, I'm just going to say this straight because someone needs to. That's a lot of money, a lot of absences, and a lot of Brad. My pager went off before I could respond. Another emergency. Another life that needed saving. As I headed back to the OR, Chen's words echoed in my mind, mixing with the sound of Sarah's shower running at 5 a.m. The empty bed, the note with its casual dismissal of my work. Try to be on time for once. I'd built a career saving hearts. Apparently, I'd forgotten to protect my own. I made it home at 6:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the Henderson dinner. The house was silent when I walked in. No sounds of dinner preparation. No Sarah bustling around getting ready. Sarah? I called out. Upstairs. Her voice drifted down, irritated already. You're cutting it really close, Marcus. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom. The door to her walk-in closet was open, clothes strewn across our bed like casualties of a shopping war. Sarah stood in front of her full-length mirror wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, cut lower and tighter than anything in her previous wardrobe. What do you think? She turned, striking a pose. Brad says I've lost 12 pounds since January. My muscle tone is finally where it should be. Brad says. There it was again. I looked at my wife, really looked at her. For the first time in months, she did look different. Her arms were more defined, her waist smaller. But there was something else. Something in her eyes when she looked at her reflection. She wasn't looking at herself the way she used to, with the soft self-criticism of a woman who'd carried the weight of a demanding career, and then sacrificed it. This was different. This was the look of someone performing. "You look great," I said, meaning it. "When did you buy that dress?" 3 weeks ago. I needed something for the gala." "What gala?" She turned to me, impatience flashing across her face. "The charity fitness gala I've been telling you about for 2 months. Brad and I are organizing it. Elite Fitness is the main sponsor." "Brad and you?" "Yes, Brad and I. He asked me to co-chair because I've been one of his most dedicated clients." She said it with pride, like she'd earned a medical degree. "It's going to be huge, Marcus. 200 people from the club, plus donors. We're raising money for youth fitness programs." "That's great. You could try to sound more supportive." She turned back to her mirror, adjusting the dress. "I know this isn't saving lives like your work, but it matters to me." The words hung between us. I wanted to argue, to say that wasn't what I meant, but she'd already moved on, checking her phone. "We need to leave in 5 minutes. Please tell me you're not wearing scrubs to dinner." I looked down at myself, still in my hospital clothes, smelling faintly of antiseptic and stress. "I'll change quickly." "Please do." "And Marcus." She finally looked at me directly, her eyes cool. "Try to be present tonight. The Hendersons are important connections for Brad's business expansion." The Hendersons, our neighbors, my patients. I'd performed a valve replacement on Jim Henderson 3 years ago, and now they were important connections for my wife's personal trainer's business. Something cold settled in my chest, the same feeling I got in the OR when vitals started dropping, and there was nothing immediately obvious to explain why. I changed quickly into slacks and a button-down shirt, splashed water on my face, tried to look like a man who hadn't just spent 4 hours elbow-deep in someone's chest cavity. When I came back downstairs, Sarah was already at the front door, keys in hand, checking her appearance one final time in the hallway mirror. "Ready?" she asked, not waiting for an answer. As we walked to the car, I noticed she'd parked her new BMW 4 Series in the driveway, another purchase I'd discovered on the credit card statement. $72,000. An investment in my self-worth, she'd called it when it arrived last month. The dinner at the Hendersons was exactly as painful as I'd anticipated. Sarah spent the entire evening talking about Brad's revolutionary approach to functional fitness, the upcoming gala, and her transformation journey. Jim and Linda Henderson nodded politely, occasionally glancing at me with what might have been pity. "And you're okay with all this?" Jim asked me quietly, when Sarah and Linda had stepped away to look at some new artwork. "The training, the time commitment." "Sarah's happy," I said, the words automatic. "That's what matters." He looked at me for a long moment, the kind of look that said he knew something I didn't. "Marcus, you saved my life. So I'm going to give you some advice. Pay attention to what's right in front of you before you lose it completely." Before I could ask what he meant, Sarah returned, animated and glowing, already pulling out her phone to show Linda photos from her last wellness retreat. I watched her scroll through images: Sarah on a hiking trail, Sarah by a pool, Sarah at a spa. And in the corner of one photo, barely visible but unmistakable, a man's tanned, muscular arm around her shoulders. "Who's that?" I asked, pointing at the photo before I could stop myself. Sarah's fingers stilled on the screen. "Just Brad. He was the wellness coach for the retreat." "I thought you said it was women only." "The lead coach has to be there, Marcus. Don't be ridiculous." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "You're not going to get jealous of my fitness instructor, are you?" Linda Henderson laughed too, but it was uncomfortable. Jim said nothing, just looked at me with those same knowing eyes. We drove home in silence. Sarah texted the entire way, her phone screen casting a blue glow across her face. I could see the messages reflected in the car window. Strings of emojis, exclamation points, the casual intimacy of constant communication with someone who wasn't me. When we pulled into our driveway, she finally looked up. "I'm meeting Brad at 5:30 a.m. for a pool session, so I'll probably be asleep when you get up." "At our pool?" "Yes. He's designing a new aquatic resistance program. Very cutting edge. She got out of the car, without waiting for my response, her heels clicking across the driveway toward our front door. I sat in the darkness of our garage for 5 minutes after she'd gone inside, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. Jim Henderson's words echoed in my mind. Pay attention to what's right in front of you before you lose it completely. But I was a surgeon. I was trained to see what others missed, to spot the subtle signs of catastrophic failure before everything fell apart. So why hadn't I seen this coming? I pulled out my phone and opened our credit card app again, scrolling back through the charges with new eyes. The wellness retreats, always at luxury resorts, the constant training sessions, the $4,200 monthly payments to a man I'd never actually met, 3 years, $280,000 in total spending that I could document so far, and I'd paid for every cent of it while working 80-hour weeks to keep us comfortable. The cold feeling in my chest expanded, spreading through my body like hypothermia. Not panic. Something else. Something surgical and precise. Recognition. I knew exactly what this was. I'd just been too busy saving other people to notice my own life bleeding out. Tomorrow, I decided. I was coming home early. Tomorrow I was going to pay attention. Tomorrow I was going to see exactly what my money had been buying. The operating room at Swedish Medical Center had a particular quality of silence that I'd always found comforting. Not true silence. The monitors beeped their steady rhythms. The ventilator whooshed. The surgical instruments clinked against steel trays. But underneath it all was a profound focus, a cathedral-like intensity where nothing existed except the beating heart in front of you and the singular mission to keep it beating. Wednesday morning, I stood over Mrs. Chen's open chest cavity, my hands steady as I harvested a section of her saphenous vein for a coronary bypass. My resident, Dr. Patel, watched from across the table, her eyes tracking every movement. "The key," I said, my voice muffled by my surgical mask, "is respect for the tissue. You're not just a mechanic replacing pipes. You're working with living architecture that's kept this woman alive for 68 years. "Yes, Doctor. Martinez." I glanced at the clock. 11:47 a.m. The surgery was progressing exactly on schedule. We'd be closing by 1:30, maybe 2 hours if we were cautious. My phone, tucked in my locker 3 floors down, held a message I'd sent at 6 a.m. that morning. Surgery scheduled for 8 a.m. should finish around 6 p.m. Long one today. The message was a lie. The first deliberate lie I'd told Sarah in 18 years of marriage. Mrs. Chen's surgery was actually straightforward. A triple bypass, yes, but she was healthy otherwise. Her tissue good, her heart strong despite the blocked arteries. I'd finish by 2 hours, maybe 2:30 at the latest, which meant I'd be home by 3 hours before Sarah expected me. Dr. Patel looked up from the surgical field. "Dr. Martinez, are you okay? You seem distracted." "I'm fine. Suction here, please." But I wasn't fine. I'd been not fine since Monday night's dinner with the Hendersons, since seeing that photo with Brad's arm around Sarah's shoulders, since Jim Henderson had looked at me with those knowing eyes and told me to pay attention. I'd spent the last 2 days paying very close attention indeed. Yesterday, I'd called my credit card company and requested detailed statements for the past 3 years. The customer service representative had sounded concerned when she'd told me the documents would be over 80 pages long. "Are you investigating fraud, Mr. Martinez?" "Something like that," I'd said. The statements had arrived in my email last night. I'd printed them at the hospital, sitting in my office at midnight after a routine valve replacement, and I'd read them the way I'd read medical journals, with clinical detachment and increasing horror. 283,470. That was the total over 3 years. Not counting the BMW lease, which was separate. Not counting her personal credit cards, which I didn't have access to. Brad's Elite Fitness Studio. $151,200 over 36 months, averaging $45,200 monthly, but with some months as high as $6,800 for intensive retreat prep, wellness retreats. 8 total, ranging from $8,000 to $15,000 each. $87,000 combined. I'd cross-reference the dates with my own calendar. Every single one had coincided with my major conferences or unavoidable surgical commitments. Times when I'd be completely unreachable for days. Plastic surgery, $42,000 for procedures I'd been told were minor cosmetic updates. Breast augmentation, liposuction, something called a Brazilian butt lift. Designer athletic wear, $27,000. Lululemon, ALO yoga, outdoor voices, brands I'd never heard of that apparently sold $100 leggings and $240 sports bras. But it was the smaller charges that had caught my attention with their pattern. Twice a week, every week, for the past 18 months, charges at the Four Seasons Hotel in downtown Seattle, usually between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Room service, spa services, sometimes minibar charges, $340 per visit on average. Times 2 per week, times 78 weeks. $53,040 spent at a hotel, 15 minutes from our house. I'd sat in my office, looking at those charges, and felt something shift inside my chest. Not my heart breaking. That would have been too melodramatic, too emotional. This was different. This was the feeling I got when I saw an X-ray that confirmed the worst possible diagnosis. The moment when you stopped hoping for a better outcome and started planning for the reality in front of you. Sarah wasn't just spending my money on fitness. She was spending it on an affair. Dr. Martinez. Dr. Patel's voice pulled me back to the present. The anastomosis. I looked down at Mrs. Chen's heart, waiting for my hands to complete the delicate connection between her saphenous vein graft and her coronary artery. My hands hadn't wavered. They never did. 22 years of training had made them independent of my emotional state. Proceeding now, I said, and my fingers moved with their usual precision, stitching living tissue to living tissue, creating new pathways for blood to flow where the old ones had failed. I closed Mrs. Chen at 1:47 p.m., ahead of schedule. Dr. Patel looked surprised when I stripped off my surgical gown and gloves, waving her toward the follow-up care. You're not staying for the ICU transfer. You can handle it. Call me if there are any complications. I showered quickly in the surgeon's locker room, changed into my street clothes, and was in my car by 2:15. The drive to our house in Medina took 20 minutes in mid-afternoon traffic. My hands were steady on the steering wheel. My heart rate was normal. I felt the same focused calm that I felt in the OR, right before making the first incision. This was just another procedure. Diagnosis first, then treatment. I pulled into our circular driveway at exactly 2:38 p.m. Sarah's BMW was there, parked at its usual angle. Next to it sat a silver Mercedes G-Wagon with vanity plates that read, Brad Fit. Perfect timing indeed. I parked behind the Mercedes, blocking it in. Then I sat for a moment looking at our house. The house I'd bought 12 years ago, right after making partner at the surgical group. 4 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, 4,200 square feet of craftsman elegance on 3/4 of an acre. The mortgage had been brutal at first, but Sarah had loved it immediately. Room to grow, she'd said, meaning room for the children we'd been planning to have. The children that had never come, despite 3 years of fertility treatments and 1 devastating miscarriage that had broken something between us that we'd never quite repaired. I got out of my car, quietly closing the door. The front entrance would be too obvious. Instead, I walked around the side of the house toward the pool area. The gate was unlocked. Through the glass panels of our pool house, I could see movement. 2 figures close together, very close. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app, setting it to video. Then I pushed open the pool house door. The scene inside was exactly what I'd expected, and somehow still shocking in its mundane reality. Sarah was on the massage table we'd bought 2 years ago, the one she'd said was essential for her recovery protocol. She was on her back, wearing nothing but a sports bra that I recognized from a $240 Lululemon charge 3 weeks ago. Her yoga pants were on the floor, pooled next to a pair of men's athletic shorts and a tank top that said, Brad's Elite Fitness, transforming bodies, changing lives. Brad was between her legs, his tanned, muscular back blocking most of my view. But the movement was unmistakable. So was the sound.
Sarah's breathing, quick and sharp, nothing like the quiet way she used to breathe with me in the rare moments we'd been intimate over the past 2 years. I stood in the doorway for 3 seconds, my phone camera recording, before Sarah's eyes opened and locked on mine. The sound she made was almost funny, a strangled gasp that turned into a scream as she shoved Brad away and scrambled to cover herself with a towel that had been draped over a nearby chair. Brad spun around, and I finally got a good look at the man I'd been paying $4,200 a month for the past 3 years. 29 years old, maybe 30, 6'2", about 195 pounds, probably 8% body fat. Tanned skin, bleached highlights in his hair, tribal tattoos running down both arms. The kind of generic fitness model aesthetic that you saw on Instagram. Perfectly sculpted and completely interchangeable with 10,000 other guys who'd built their entire identity around their bodies. His face, currently flushed red with exertion and surprise, cycled through several expressions in rapid succession. Shock, fear, then something that settled into cocky defiance. "Whoa, dude," he said, making no move to cover himself or reach for his shorts. "This is not what it looks like." I kept my phone camera trained on both of them. "Really? Because it looks like you're fucking my wife in my pool house on a Wednesday afternoon while I'm supposed to be at work. What part of that am I misunderstanding?" Sarah clutched the towel around herself, her carefully applied makeup starting to smudge. "Marcus, I can explain." "Please don't." My voice was flat, clinical. "I'm not here for explanations.
I'm here because my surgery finished early, and I wanted to see what 3 years and $283,000 of my money had been buying." The number landed like a scalpel cut, precise and deep.
Brad's expression flickered, something that might have been guilt, or might have been calculation. "Listen, man, this is between you and your wife. I'm just going to grab my stuff and you're not going anywhere." I moved into the room fully, positioning myself between him and his clothes. "You're going to stand there and let me get a good look at what my investment has produced." "Marcus, stop this." Sarah's voice rose, panic creeping in. "You're acting crazy. Crazy." I looked at her fully for the first time. Really looked at her. The body I'd paid $42,000 to surgically enhance. The hair I'd paid $300 a month to style and color. The face I'd paid for microdermabrasion and Botox and whatever other treatments she'd been getting at that hotel, twice a week, for 18 months. "No, Sarah, I'm acting like someone who just realized he's been funding his own humiliation." Brad finally reached for his shorts, but I was closer. I kicked them away, sending them sliding across the tile floor. He straightened up, and I could see the moment his psychology shifted from caught in the act to aggressive defense. "Look, bro, no disrespect, but maybe if you'd been taking care of your wife's needs, she wouldn't have been looking elsewhere." He crossed his arms, his biceps flexing, a peacock display of physical dominance. "I mean, she told me you're never home, always at the hospital. She's a beautiful woman with needs, man. What did you expect?" The audacity was breathtaking. I'd seen this before in patients' family members who'd neglected warning signs until catastrophe struck, then tried to blame the doctors for not preventing what they'd caused. "What I expected," I said slowly, "was that the woman I supported through nursing school, who promised to support my medical career in return, who hasn't worked in 18 years, might have the basic human decency not to fuck her personal trainer in the home I paid for." "You don't understand," Sarah interjected, her voice taking on that familiar defensive tone I'd heard so many times when questioned about spending. "You don't know what it's like, Marcus. You're gone all the time. Do you have any idea how lonely I've been, how invisible I've felt? So lonely that you needed $87,000 worth of wellness retreats. So invisible that you required $151,000 in personal training." I pulled up my phone's photos. Not the video I'd just taken, but screenshots of the credit card statements I'd prepared this morning. "Let me show you exactly how visible you've been, Sarah. This is from the Four Seasons downtown. 78 visits in 18 months. That's $53,000 in hotel charges alone for someone who lives 15 minutes away." Her face drained of color. "Ah, and Brad," I turned back to the personal trainer who was still standing there in all his naked glory. "Let's talk about your services. $4,200 a month for personal training. That's 200 euro per hour if we assume 15 hours a month, which is generous. But according to these charges, some months you were billing her for 30 or 40 hours. Were those hours spent in the gym, or were they spent here in my pool house on equipment I purchased? Brad's jaw tightened. Whatever you think you know, I know you're not actually a certified personal trainer. I delivered the line with surgical precision, watching it land. I looked up your credentials yesterday, the certification you list on your website.
It's from an online course that takes 6 weeks and costs $600.
You're not qualified to prescribe aspirin, let alone design the revolutionary functional fitness protocols my wife has been paying you for. That's a lie, Brad said, but his voice wavered. It's public record.
I pulled your business registration too. Brad's Elite Fitness Studio isn't even a registered LLC. You're operating as a sole proprietorship, which means every dollar Sarah has paid you goes directly into your personal account.
No business insurance, no liability coverage, just cash flowing straight to. I looked at him carefully, noting the expensive watch, the designer workout clothes crumpled on the floor, the Mercedes G-Wagon outside with its vanity plates. Straight to funding your lifestyle. Sarah was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Marcus, please, can we talk about this privately? Privately? I looked at her. Like how you privately spent my money on hotel rooms.
Like how you privately told your lover about our intimate life, or lack of it.
Like how you privately gave him access to our home while I was saving people's lives. I never. She told me everything, bro. Brad apparently decided offense was his best defense. About how you can't satisfy her anymore.
About how she has to fake it when you actually bother to touch her. About how she was planning to leave you anyway, she was just waiting for the right time. The words hung in the air between us. I looked at Sarah, waiting for her to deny it,
to say something, anything that would make this moment less devastating. She looked away. Is that true? I asked quietly. Her silence was answer enough. Something settled in my chest then. Not heartbreak, not rage, but something cold and clarifying. The feeling I got when a patient's heart stopped on the table, and there was no time for emotion, only action. Okay, I said calmly. I stopped recording on my phone and pocketed it. Here's what's going to happen now. Brad, you're going to get dressed and leave. Sarah and I are going to have a conversation about the next steps in dissolving our marriage. And nobody is going to contact the police or try to make this into more drama than it already is. Are we clear? Brad looked relieved, reaching for his shorts. Yeah, man, that's cool. I'm just gonna... Oh, and Brad, I said as he pulled on his clothes. You should know that video I just took is going to be very useful in the divorce proceedings.
Washington is a no-fault state, but infidelity definitely impacts alimony calculations, especially when the cheating spouse has been spending the other spouse's money to conduct the affair. His hands stilled on his shorts. And one more thing, I continued conversationally. I counted 6 women in my neighborhood who use your services. The Hendersons mentioned that their daughter Ashley is one of your clients. Jim Henderson is a senior partner at Morrison & Caldwell, one of Seattle's biggest law firms. His daughter is 26, married, and I'm guessing he'll be very interested to know about your business practices. The color drained from Brad's face. You wouldn't test me. My voice was still calm, still clinical. See what happens when you corner a man who has nothing left to lose except his dignity. Brad grabbed his tank top and his keys and practically ran from the pool house. Through the window, I watched him sprint to his Mercedes, not even bothering to put on his shirt. Then it was just Sarah and me, standing in the wreckage of 18 years. She pulled the towel tighter around herself. Marcus, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It happened. I didn't mean for... How long? I interrupted. What? How long has it been going on? The affair, not just the training. She bit her lip. Does it matter? Yes. 18 months. She said it so quietly I almost didn't hear. It started at one of the wellness retreats. We were alone, and you'd missed our anniversary again because of that conference, and I was angry, and he was there, and 18 months. I did the calculation automatically.
That's the same time the hotel charges started. So it wasn't just pool house sessions. You were spending 3 afternoons a week in luxury hotel rooms, ordering room service on my credit card, probably telling him how trapped you felt in your marriage to the man who was paying for everything. It wasn't like that. Then what was it? Like Sarah.
Explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you decided that 18 years of supporting your fitness fantasy wasn't enough. You decided you deserved a younger, more available man.
But instead of being honest with me, instead of asking for a divorce, you just spent my money and fucked him in my house while I was saving people's lives. She flinched at the profanity. I never swore. In 22 years of medical practice, through every crisis and disaster, I'd maintained professional composure. But I wasn't in the hospital anymore. "You're never home," she said, and now there was anger in her voice too.
Do you have any idea what it's like being married to someone who's married to their job?
I spent 18 years playing second fiddle to your career, your patience, your goddamn God complex about saving everyone except your own marriage. I was building our future. You were making excuses. She stood up, still clutching the towel, her face red and blotchy. Every missed dinner, every canceled vacation, every emergency that was more important than me. You chose that life, Marcus. You chose your work over us. So yes, I found someone who actually wanted to spend time with me. Someone who made me feel alive instead of like a piece of furniture you occasionally noticed between surgeries. The words should have hurt. Maybe they would later. Right now, they just sounded like justification. Like a closing argument in a trial she'd already decided. "Did you ever love me?" I asked. "Or was I just a meal ticket? A way to fund the lifestyle you wanted, while you figured out what you really wanted?" Her eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw something that might have been genuine pain. "I loved you."
I loved who you were in medical school, when we were struggling together, when we had dreams instead of schedule. But you became someone else. Someone who measured his worth in how many lives he saved, how many hours he worked, how much money he made. You stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as another responsibility to manage. And Brad sees you as what? A person.
Or a paycheck. She turned away. "You don't understand." "You're right. I don't." I pulled out my phone again, opening my banking app. "Let me show you something." I navigated to our joint savings account, the one I'd been depositing into for 18 years. The balance showed $427,389. "This is our retirement savings," I said. "I've been putting away $2,000 a month since I finished my residency. That's separate from the $283,000 you've spent on your affair with Brad. Do you know what I was saving this for?" She didn't answer. "I was saving it so you could go back to school if you wanted, or start a business, or so we could adopt, since we couldn't have biological children, or so we could retire early and travel the world together. I was saving it for our future, Sarah. Our future." I watched her process this, watched the reality of what she'd thrown away sink in. "I'm going to get my lawyer tomorrow," I said quietly. "You're going to move out of this house by the end of the week. And we're going to divorce as quickly and cleanly as Washington law allows. You'll get what the prenup stipulates, which, if you remember, was the standard 50-50 split, minus any marital assets wasted on extramarital affairs. We didn't have a prenup. We did. You signed it 3 days before our wedding. Your lawyer looked it over. Maybe you don't remember because you were busy planning the $40,000 ceremony I paid for." Her face went pale. "That can't be." "Check with your lawyer, or check the safe in my office. I keep all important documents there." I walked toward the pool house door, then stopped. "Oh, and Sarah, that charity fitness gala you and Brad are planning." She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. Maybe she thought I'd stay quiet, let her save face in front of her social circle. "I'm going to be there," I said. "Front row. I think your guests deserve to know exactly who they're supporting." Then I walked out, leaving her standing in the pool house, the towel clutched around her, the sound of her crying following me across the lawn toward our house. My house now. I had phone calls to make. I sat in my home office for 3 hours after Sarah left. She'd packed 2 suitcases, moving with impressive speed once she realized I was serious, and driven away in her BMW without saying another word. The house felt different with her gone, cleaner somehow, like a surgical site after removing diseased tissue. My phone sat on my desk next to a yellow legal pad where I'd started making lists.
Years of medical training had taught me that complex problems required systematic approaches. You didn't just cut into a chest cavity and hope for the best. You planned, you prepared, you anticipated every possible complication.
This was no different. At the top of the pad, I'd written, evidence.
Underneath, in my careful handwriting, the categories began to emerge. Financial, $283,470. Documented, over 36 months. Brad's Elite Fitness, $151,200. Wellness retreats, $87,000. 8 retreats, cross-referenced with my conference dates. Plastic surgery, $42,000. 4 Seasons Hotel, $53,040. 156 visits over 18 months. Designer athletic wear, $27,000. Miss, juices, supplements, wellness products, $23,230. Video evidence, Pool House, Wednesday, Coach, 41 p.m., 2.49 p.m. HD quality, both faces clearly visible.
Credit card receipts, organized chronologically, highlighted charges showing pattern hotel records, called 4 Seasons, requested copies of all room service receipts under my name, arriving Friday. I tapped my pen against the pad, thinking. The video was damning. The financial records were comprehensive, but Jim Henderson's words from the dinner party kept echoing in my mind. Pay attention to what's right in front of you. What else had I missed? I opened my laptop and typed Brad Whitmore, Seattle, into Google. His website appeared immediately. Brad's Elite Fitness Studio, with professional photos of Brad demonstrating various exercises. His tribal tattoos on full display. Transforming bodies, changing lives. Since 2019. Since 2019, 4 years ago, right around the time Sarah had first mentioned wanting to try personal training, I clicked through his site. Testimonials from satisfied clients, all women, all between ages 35 and 55, before and after photos. A services page listing prices that made my medical training seem economical. Personal training, 280-hour wellness coaching, 350-hour exclusive VIP package, $4,200 a month, includes unlimited training, nutrition planning, and lifestyle optimization. That last one was what Sarah had been paying for. Lifestyle optimization. I clicked on his credentials page. There it was, exactly as I'd told him in the pool house. A certification from the International Sports Sciences Association, a 6-week online course. Below that, some vague language about years of experience transforming lives and holistic wellness philosophy. Nothing about actual education. No kinesiology degree, no physical therapy background, no medical training of any kind. I ran a business license search through Washington State's Secretary of State website, Brad Whitmore, operating as Brad's Elite Fitness, sole proprietorship, registered April 2019. No LLC, no corporate structure, no business insurance listed. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have, but my moral compass had recalibrated significantly in the past 3 hours. I ran his name through the King County Court Records database. 3 results popped up. 2 traffic violations from 2018 and 2020, and 1 civil suit from 2021, filed by a woman named Jennifer Caldwell. Caldwell, as in Morrison and Caldwell, the law firm where Jim Henderson's son-in-law worked. I clicked on the case summary. The suit had been filed for professional negligence and emotional distress, but had been settled out of court within 6 weeks. The settlement amount was sealed, but the initial filing was public record. I read through the complaint, my jaw tightening with each paragraph. Defendant Bradley Whitmore, operating as Brad's Elite Fitness, did knowingly and intentionally engage in sexual relations with plaintiff while in a professional capacity as her personal trainer. Defendant did manipulate plaintiff's emotional vulnerability. Defendant did request and receive monetary loans totaling $47,000. Defendant did continue relations with multiple other clients simultaneously while assuring plaintiff of exclusive romantic commitment. There it was. The pattern. This wasn't Sarah's personal trainer having an affair with a lonely client. This was a con artist who'd refined his technique over multiple victims. I printed the court document and added it to my growing file. My phone rang. An unknown number. I answered on speaker. Dr. Martinez. This is Patricia Morrison from Henderson and Associates. Jim Henderson gave me your number. He said you might need legal representation. I leaned back in my chair. Jim Henderson worked fast. That depends. What kind of law do you practice? Family law, specifically high-asset divorces and prenuptial agreements. Her voice was professional, crisp. Jim mentioned you might have a situation that requires immediate attention. How much did he tell you? Enough to know that time is probably a factor and that you're likely going to need protection of assets and documentation of marital waste. Marital waste, the legal term for spending marital funds on extramarital affairs. Can you meet tomorrow morning? I asked. I have evidence to show you, a lot of evidence. I can meet you at 7 a.m. My office opens at 8, but Jim said you'd want this handled discreetly. She paused. Dr. Martinez, I want you to know that I handled Jennifer Caldwell's case against Brad Whitmore in 2021. When Jim told me that name came up in your situation, I knew exactly what we're dealing with. My hand stilled on the legal pad. How many women has he done this to? That I know of personally, 3, including your wife. That, I suspect, based on similar patterns, at least a dozen over the past 4 years. Her voice hardened. He's good at what he does. He targets women who are lonely, whose husbands work demanding jobs. He makes them feel seen, special. Then he bleeds them financially while conducting multiple simultaneous affairs. Jennifer Caldwell lost $47,000 to him. Another client I consulted with lost nearly $80,000. And he's still operating? Civil suits don't require disclosure. He settles, signs NDAs, moves on to the next target. It's a perfect system. The women are too embarrassed to go public, too worried about their marriages, to pursue criminal charges, and his personal training business gives him legitimate cover for intimate access. I thought about Sarah, crying in the pool house, about the 18 months she'd spent thinking she was special to Brad, not realizing she was just another mark in a rotation. 7 a.m. tomorrow, I said. I'll bring everything. I spent the rest of Wednesday evening doing research I should have done 3 years ago. Social media became my operating room, and Brad Whitmore's digital footprint was the patient on my table. His Instagram had 47,000 followers. The feed was exactly what I'd expected. Shirtless mirror selfies, motivational quotes over sunset photos, videos of him training beautiful women with captions like, "Crushing goals with my VIP clients." Transformation Tuesday, Elite Fitness. I scrolled through his tagged photos. Dozens of women, all around Sarah's age, all wealthy based on their clothing and settings. Many of the photos were taken at luxury hotels, wellness retreats, high-end gyms. I started taking screenshots, noting names, cross-referencing with public business directories. Ashley Henderson, Jim's daughter, appeared in 15 photos over the past year. Always in expensive athletic wear, always with Brad's arm around her shoulders or his hand on her lower back. The poses were professional enough to pass as trainer-client, but I'd seen that body language in the pool house. I knew what it meant. There were others. Melissa Tran, wife of a Microsoft executive. Victoria Brennan, whose husband owned a chain of car dealerships. Rachel Kim, married to a prominent Seattle architect. I created a spreadsheet. Physicians love spreadsheets, listing every woman I could identify from Brad's social media. Name, age, husband's profession, estimated household income, frequency of appearances with Brad. 23 women total. All married, all wealthy, all with husbands who worked demanding high-profile jobs. By midnight, I had a comprehensive profile of Brad Whitmore's business model. He was running a long-term con, disguised as a fitness business, targeting wealthy, lonely women and systematically extracting money through legitimate-seeming training fees. while conducting affairs that made the women emotionally dependent enough to ignore warning signs.
Sarah wasn't a cheating wife. She was a victim, but she'd also spent $283,000 of my money on her victimization, and that complicated my sympathy considerably. Thursday morning at 6:45 a.m., I walked into Patricia Morrison's office, carrying a briefcase that weighed approximately 10 pounds. Inside, 3 years of credit card statements, bank records, the video from the pool house, printed screenshots from social media, the court records from Jennifer Caldwell's case, and my spreadsheet of Brad's apparent client list. Patricia was already there, coffee in hand, wearing a sharp gray suit that screamed competence. She was probably 50, with steel gray hair cut in a precise bob and the kind of direct gaze that came from years of listening to people's worst moments. "Dr. Martinez." She shook my hand firmly. "Let's see what we're working with." I opened the briefcase and spread the evidence across her conference table like a surgeon laying out instruments. She pulled on reading glasses and began examining everything with the methodical attention I recognized from my own profession. For 20 minutes, she said nothing. She just read, occasionally making notes on her own legal pad, her expression neutral. Finally, she sat back and removed her glasses. "This is one of the most comprehensive evidence packages I've seen in a divorce case," she said. "You've documented everything. Financial records, timeline, pattern of deception, even corroborating evidence of the defendant's prior bad acts. Is it enough? Dr. Martinez, this isn't just enough for a divorce. This is enough to destroy them both." She tapped the spreadsheet of Brad's clients. "You've essentially done the investigative work that would cost my clients $50,000 in PI fees. The video alone guarantees you'll get everything in the prenup. But this," she gestured at the full spread, "this changes the game entirely." "How?" She leaned forward, her expression intense. "You said your wife is co-chairing a charity fitness gala with Mr. Whitmore in 3 months. December 15th, Saturday night, 200 guests, all from their social circle and Brad's client base. And presumably some of these women," she pointed at my spreadsheet, "will be there." "Almost certainly." Sarah mentioned it's supposed to be the social event of the season for the fitness crowd. Patricia's smile was sharp enough to cut. "Dr. Martinez, what would you say if I told you we could do more than just win your divorce? What if we could expose this entire operation in front of everyone who's been funding it?" I felt something shift in my chest. Not quite hope, something colder. "I'm listening." Washington has a law called tortious interference with marital relations. Essentially, if a third party knowingly engages in an affair that breaks up a marriage, and that third party benefited financially from the affair, the wronged spouse can sue for damages. How much damages? Depends on the case. But given your documentation of $283,000 in marital waste, plus emotional distress, plus the pattern of prior bad acts showing this was intentional, I'd say we could make a credible case for $500,000 to $750,000. I sat back in my chair. "You want to sue Brad for breaking up my marriage. I want to sue Brad for running a con game that destroyed your marriage while enriching himself. And I want to do it publicly, with maximum impact, right when he thinks he's at the top of his game." She pulled out her phone and pulled up a website. "Look at this." It was a promotional page for the gala. Brad's Elite Fitness First Annual Charity Gala, supporting youth wellness programs. Photos of Brad and Sarah, both in athletic wear, posed like fitness power couple. Ticket prices, $500 per person, $5,000 for VIP tables. "They're raising money for charity," Patricia said, while running a scam on the donors. "The cognitive dissonance is almost beautiful." "What are you proposing?" She folded her hands on the table. "We file for divorce immediately. Standard procedure, 50-50 split of assets minus marital waste, which we'll document extensively. That's the baseline. Then we prepare a separate civil suit against Mr. Whitmore for tortious interference, fraud, and emotional distress. We document everything, every client, every affair, every dollar. And we wait. Wait for what? For December 15th, for that gala. For the moment when Brad and your wife are standing in front of 200 of Seattle's wealthiest residents, accepting donations and applause." Patricia's smile was arctic.
And then we serve him. Publicly. With every guest as a witness to exactly what kind of man they've been supporting. I thought about it, the surgical precision of it, the timing, the public nature of the exposure. Won't that violate some kind of legal ethics? I asked. Serving legal papers at a public event. Perfectly legal. Dramatic. Absolutely. But everything we're doing is by the book. The court doesn't care where or when papers are served, as long as they're served properly. She paused. The question is whether you're comfortable with that level of public confrontation. I thought about Sarah in the pool house, the sound of her breathing with Brad, about 18 years of marriage, reduced to sneaking around in hotel rooms. About $283,000 spent on a con artist who probably told the same lies to a dozen other women. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon, I said quietly. I cut people open for a living. Sometimes you have to be willing to cause pain to fix what's broken. Patricia nodded slowly. Then let's start operating. The divorce paperwork was filed by Friday afternoon. Sarah's lawyer, an expensive shark named Robert Vance, called Patricia within 2 hours. Your client is being unreasonable, I could hear him saying through Patricia's speakerphone. Mrs. Martinez is willing to accept a 50-50 split of all marital assets, no alimony, clean break. Why complicate things with claims of marital waste? Because there was marital waste, Patricia replied calmly, to the tune of $283,000, which we can document with receipts, video evidence, and testimony. If Mr. Martinez wanted to be unreasonable, he could pursue criminal fraud charges against both your client and Mr. Whitmore. Instead, he's being quite generous. He's only asking that the money his wife spent conducting an affair be removed from her share of the marital assets. Silence on the other end. You have video evidence? HD quality. Time-stamped. Both participants clearly visible and identifiable. Recorded on Mr. Martinez's property with his knowledge and consent. Completely admissible. More silence. Then, my client maintains that the relationship with Mr.
Whitmore only became physical after she and Dr. Martinez had emotionally separated. Then your client will need to explain the hotel receipts dating back 18 months, the wellness retreats where Mr.
Whitmore was coincidentally present, and the pattern of escalating charges that correspond exactly with the timeline of her affair. Patricia's voice never lost its professional calm. Robert, you and I have worked opposite sides of a dozen cases. You know I don't bluff. The evidence is airtight. Your client cheated, spent marital funds to conduct the affair, and got caught. The only question is whether she wants to settle this quietly or have every detail aired in court. I'll need to consult with my client. You have until Monday. After that, we're filing the complete evidence package with the court, which becomes public record. I'm sure Mrs. Martinez's social circle would be very interested in reading the details. Patricia hung up and looked at me. He'll call back by Monday with a settlement offer. Sarah's not stupid. She knows the video destroys any credible defense. And Brad, we're still building the case against him. I've contacted 3 of my former clients who had dealings with him. 2 are willing to provide testimony. One of them, she consulted her notes, Jennifer Caldwell, Jim Henderson's daughter, is willing to break her NDA if it means stopping him from doing this to other women. Can she do that? Break an NDA? Technically, no. But if Brad tries to enforce the NDA, he has to admit in court why the NDA exists, which means admitting to the behavior he's trying to hide. It's a legal catch-22 that works in our favor. She smiled. Plus, I don't think Brad is sophisticated enough to understand the implications. He's been operating on charm and intimidation. He's not prepared for actual legal consequences. I thought about Brad in the pool house, his cocky defiance, the way he'd tried to justify sleeping with my wife by blaming my work schedule. What do we need from me? I asked. Keep documenting everything. Every contact from Sarah, every social media post from Brad, anything that shows ongoing behavior. And, she pulled out a folder, I need you to fill out this financial affidavit. Every asset, every debt, every account. We need a complete picture before we can calculate exactly what Sarah is entitled to under the prenup. I took the folder. How long until trial? If Sarah settles, 6 to 8 weeks for the divorce to finalize. If she fights, could be 6 months. Patricia's expression softened slightly. Dr. Martinez, I have to ask, are you okay? Emotionally, I mean. This is a lot to process in 48 hours. Was I okay?
I discovered my wife's affair, confronted her lover, filed for divorce, and begun preparing a systematic legal destruction of both of them. I'd slept maybe 6 hours total since Wednesday.
I'd performed 2 surgeries yesterday and had 3 more scheduled for today. My entire life had detonated in the space of one afternoon. I'm fine, I said, and realized it was mostly true. I felt clear-headed, focused, purposeful. I know what needs to be done. Now I'm just executing the plan. She studied me for a moment. You're in shock. It's a controlled shock, a functional shock, but it's still shock. When this is all over, when the adrenaline wears off, the real grief is going to hit. Promise me you'll have support ready when that happens. I'm a surgeon. I'm trained to compartmentalize. Surgeons are also human beings who sometimes forget they're not actually invincible. Her voice was kind but firm.
I've seen a lot of men in your position try to power through this like it's just another problem to solve. But divorce isn't surgery, Dr. Martinez. You can't cut out the bad parts and close up clean.
There will be scars. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She stood up, gathering the evidence back into my briefcase. Go home, rest, take care of yourself, and start thinking about what you want your life to look like after this is over.
Because one way or another, by Christmas, you're going to be a different person than you are today. I drove home through downtown Seattle traffic, Patricia's words echoing in my mind. By Christmas, you're going to be a different person.
The house was still empty when I arrived. Sarah hadn't come back for the rest of her things yet. Her lawyer had probably told her to stay away until the initial settlement negotiations were complete. I walked through the rooms, seeing them with new eyes. The living room with its expensive furniture, all chosen by Sarah. The kitchen with its professional-grade appliances that she'd insisted were necessary for meal prep, though I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen her actually cook. The master bedroom with its empty closet where her clothes had been. In my office, I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. The spreadsheet of Brad's clients was still on the screen. 23 names. 23 women who were probably going through some version of what Sarah had experienced. Some might be active affairs. Others might be past victims who'd already paid the price and moved on. I opened a new document and started typing. Not for Patricia, not for the court, for me. A letter to future Marcus. Right now, you're angry. You're hurt. You're focused on revenge and justice and making sure everyone knows what they did to you. That's okay. That's natural. But remember this. You spent 18 years married to Sarah. Some of those years were good. She supported you through medical school. She believed in you when you weren't sure you believed in yourself. She was there for the failures and the victories. Don't let the way it ended erase everything that came before.
At the same time, don't let sentimentality blind you to the truth. She spent 18 months lying to you, spending your money, and sleeping with a con artist. She made her choices. You're making yours.
When this is over, when the dust settles and the divorce is final, and Brad Whitmore is facing consequences for his actions, you're going to have to decide who you want to be. The bitter ex-husband who let betrayal define him, or the man who learned, grew, and built something better from the wreckage. Choose carefully. Your future depends on it. Marcus. I saved the document and closed the laptop. Outside, the Seattle sky was doing its usual autumn thing. Gray clouds threatening rain. The light already fading, even though it was only 4 p.m. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Dr. Martinez, this is Ashley Henderson. My dad told me what happened with your wife and Brad. I need to talk to you. Can we meet? It's important. I stared at the message for a long moment. Jim Henderson's daughter. One of the 23 names on my spreadsheet. One of Brad's victims. I typed back, tomorrow, 10 a.m., Starbucks on 45th. Come alone. Her response came immediately. Thank you. You have no idea how much this means, but I did know. I understood exactly what it meant. Another piece of evidence, another witness, another nail in Brad Whitmore's professionally built coffin. I typed back, tomorrow, 10 a.m., Starbucks on 45th. Come alone. Her response came immediately. Thank you. You have no idea how much this means, but I did know. I understood exactly what it meant. Another piece of evidence, another witness, another nail in Brad Whitmore's professionally built coffin. I stood up and walked to my bedroom window, looking out over the perfectly manicured backyard, the pool where Brad had designed his revolutionary aquatic resistance program, the pool house where I'd caught them together. 3 months until the gala, December 15th, a Saturday night when 200 of Seattle's wealthy elite would gather to celebrate fitness, wellness, and charitable giving. They would get a different show than they were expecting. I pulled out my phone and called Patricia Morrison. "It's Marcus Martinez," I said when she answered. "I want to move forward with everything. The divorce, the civil suit against Brad, all of it.
But I want to add one more element to the plan." "What's that?" "I want to contact all 23 women on that list. I want to document every affair, every scam, every dollar he's taken.
And I want to present it all at the gala. Not just my case, but the full pattern. I want everyone to see exactly who they've been supporting." Patricia was quiet for a moment. "That's ambitious. Also risky. If even one of those women warns Brad, they won't, because they're just as trapped as Sarah was. They're embarrassed, ashamed, afraid their husbands will find out. But if we approach them the right way, if we show them they're not alone, if we give them a chance to take back their power." I paused. "These women are victims, but they can also be witnesses. And there's nothing more powerful than witnesses telling the truth. You're talking about building a case that could take months. We have 3 months. I'm a surgeon. I can work fast and precise when necessary. Can you help me?" Another pause. "Then, I'll need to bring in an investigator. Someone discreet who can verify information without tipping Brad off. That's going to cost. I don't care what it costs. Send me the bill. This isn't about money anymore." "Then what is it about?" I looked at my reflection in the window, at the man I'd become over 18 years of marriage, the devoted husband, the hard worker, the provider who'd been too focused on his career to notice. His life falling apart. "Justice," I said, "and making sure no one else has to go through this." Patricia's voice warmed slightly. "All right, Dr. Martinez, let's go to work." Ashley Henderson arrived at the Starbucks on 45th Street at 9:53 a.m., 7 minutes early. I watched her through the window as she parked her Range Rover, white, spotless, probably $90,000, and checked her appearance in the rearview mirror 3 times before getting out. She was 26, athletic build, wearing Lululemon leggings and an oversized sweater that probably cost $400. Blonde hair, pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup except for what looked like hastily applied concealer under her eyes, the kind you use to hide evidence of crying. I'd arrived 15 minutes early myself, sitting in the back corner with a clear view of the entrance. Old habit from residency. Always position yourself where you can see everything, where you have time to assess before engaging. She ordered something complicated, a venti iced oat milk latte with an extra shot and vanilla sweet cream cold foam, and scanned the room nervously before spotting me. I'd told her I'd be wearing a blue surgical scrub top, easier than describing my face. "Dr. Martinez?" She approached the table, clutching her coffee like a lifeline. "Ashley, thank you for meeting me." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Sit down." She sat, then immediately stood back up. "I'm sorry, I need to. Do you want anything? I should have asked if you wanted—" "I'm fine. Please sit." She sat again, her hands trembling slightly as she set down her coffee. Up close, I could see she was exhausted. The concealer hadn't quite hidden the dark circles. Her nails were bitten down to the quick. "My dad said you caught your wife with Brad." The words came out in a rush. "He said you have evidence. Video evidence." "I do. I need to see it." Her eyes were desperate. "Please. My husband doesn't believe me. He thinks I'm paranoid, that I'm making it up because I'm insecure. But I know something's happening. I know Brad is—" She stopped, her voice breaking. "I need proof." I pulled out my phone and opened the Photos app, navigating to the video I'd taken in the pool house. My thumb hovered over the play button. "Before I show you this," I said carefully, "I need you to understand what you're going to see. This is explicit. It's my wife and Brad, engaged in sexual activity in my pool house. It's going to be upsetting." "I don't care." I need to see. I turned the phone toward her and pressed play. She watched the 47-second video in complete silence, her face draining of color. When it ended, she set down her coffee and covered her mouth with both hands. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God. I knew it. I knew it, but nobody believed me." "Ashley," I said gently, "tell me your story." It took her 20 minutes to get it all out, interrupted by tears and long pauses where she struggled to find words. I listened the way I'd learned to listen in medical school, without judgment, without interruption, letting the patient tell their story in their own time. Ashley had started training with Brad 18 months ago. Her husband, David, was a software engineer at Amazon, working 70-hour weeks on a high-priority project. She'd been lonely, bored, feeling invisible in their brand-new marriage. Brad had been perfect at first, attentive, encouraging, always available. When David wasn't, the training sessions became the highlight of her week. "He made me feel seen," she said, twisting her wedding ring, "like I mattered. Like I was more than just David's wife or Daddy's little girl." 6 months in, Brad had suggested a wellness intensive, a weekend retreat at a resort in Whistler. Just the two of them. Focused training, meal planning, next-level transformation. David was in Tokyo for a conference. Brad said it would be the perfect time to really focus on my goals. She laughed bitterly. My goals? What a joke. The weekend had been the beginning. Brad had initiated it slowly, professionally. A massage that lasted too long. A hand on her lower back that drifted lower. Compliments that shifted from, "Your form is great," to, "You're beautiful." I should have stopped it. I knew it was wrong. But he made me feel like... She trailed off, staring at her untouched latte. Like I was special. Like we had this connection that transcended the trainer-client thing. "Did you pay for the retreat?" "Of course. $8,400. He said it was a discounted rate for VIP clients." She looked up at me, her eyes red. "That's what he calls us. VIP clients. Like we're part of some exclusive club." "How long did the affair last?" "It's still going on. Or it was, until 3 days ago." She pulled out her own phone, scrolling through text messages. "Look at this. This is from last week." She showed me a thread of messages from Brad. "Brad, missing you today. That sundress you wore yesterday is burned into my brain, Ashley. David's home tonight. Can't make our session. Brad. Tomorrow then? I have the Four Seasons booked for 11 a.m. We could do a recovery session. Ashley. I don't know. I feel guilty every time. Brad. Baby, don't think of it as guilt. Think of it as self-care. You deserve to feel good. David works all the time. When does he make you a priority? Ashley. I guess you're right. Brad. I know I am. See you tomorrow. Wear that sundress. For me." I read through more messages, dozens of them, all following the same pattern. Brad, positioning himself as the solution to her loneliness. David as the problem, the affair as self-care rather than betrayal. "He does this with all of us, doesn't he?" Ashley said quietly. "We're not special. We're just marks." "Yes." She started crying again, quietly this time. "I'm such an idiot. I've been paying him $4,200 a month for 18 months. That's..." She did the math in her head. "That's over $75,000. I told David it was for intensive training and nutrition coaching. He thought I was being frivolous, but he didn't question it because Daddy pays most of our bills anyway. Does your father know about the affair?" "God, no. He'd kill me. Or kill Brad. Probably both." She wiped her eyes. "When he told me what happened with you and your wife, I thought maybe this was my chance to finally tell someone. Someone who would understand." I leaned forward. "Ashley, I'm building a legal case against Brad. Fraud, emotional manipulation, what's called tortious interference with marital relations. I have evidence from my own situation, but I need more. I need to establish a pattern of behavior. Would you be willing to provide testimony?" She went pale. "Testify? Like, in court?" "Potentially, but more immediately. I'm planning to expose him publicly at the charity gala in December. I want to show everyone who's been supporting him exactly what kind of man he is." "The gala." She closed her eyes. I bought a VIP table. $5,000. Brad said it would be good for me to show support for his business. Did he suggest you buy the table, or did you offer? He suggested it. He said it would mean a lot to him, that he'd remember who his real supporters were when he expanded the business. She opened her eyes, understanding dawning. He was manipulating me. Even that was part of the con. Everything was part of the con, Ashley.
The training, the affair, the emotional support, all of it was designed to extract money while making you feel like you were the one benefiting. She sat back in her chair, processing. If I testify, David will find out.
My marriage will be over. It might be, or it might be the thing that saves it. If David sees you were manipulated by a professional con artist, if he understands you're a victim, not a villain, there's a chance he'll choose to work through it with you. And if he doesn't, then you'll know you married someone who can't forgive. Human mistakes. Better to know now than after wasting more years. She looked at me for a long moment. You're very logical about all this. Don't you feel angry? Hurt? I feel both. But anger and hurt don't help in the operating room, and they don't help in a legal case. What helps is precision, evidence, and strategic thinking. I paused. The grief will come later. Right now I have work to do. She nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Everything. Every text message, every receipt, every detail about how he operated. I need dates, amounts, locations. I need you to document the pattern of manipulation, how he positioned himself, what he said, what he promised. I can do that. Her voice was steadier now. But Dr. Martinez, there's something else you should know. I'm not the only one. Brad told me once when he was drunk after a session that he had 5 serious clients and about 15 casual ones. I think he meant 5 women he was sleeping with and 15 who were just paying for training. 5 serious clients. 15 casual ones. 20 total, almost matching my count of 23 from social media. Do you know any of their names? A few. He was careful not to be too specific, but sometimes he'd slip up. She pulled out her phone again, opening her notes app. I started keeping track after I got suspicious. There's Melissa Tran. Her husband works at Microsoft. Victoria Brennan, I think her husband owns car dealerships. Rachel Kim, she does hot yoga with me sometimes. And there's one more, someone he called S in his texts. He was really careful about her. Never said her name, but I got the impression she was the main one. The one he was most serious about. S. Sarah. My wife had been his primary target, his main one, while he juggled at least 4 other affairs and extracted money from 15 additional clients. The scope of it was staggering. Ashley, I said, I need you to do something that's going to feel like a betrayal of girl code, but it's necessary. I need you to help me contact the other women. Melissa, Victoria, Rachel, anyone else you can identify. They deserve to know what's happening, and we need their testimony to build an ironclad case. She hesitated. They might not want to help. Some of them might still be invested in him. Then we'll deal with that. But we have to try. I pulled out my card, my personal card, not my hospital card, and slid it across the table. Think about it. But don't take too long. The gala is in 11 weeks. If we're going to do this, we need to move fast. She took the card, turning it over in her fingers. Dr. Martinez, thank you for believing me, for making me feel like I'm not crazy. You're not crazy, Ashley. You're human. He exploited that. After she left, I sat in the Starbucks for another 20 minutes, staring at my coffee and thinking about the mathematics of Brad's operation. 20 women at an average of $4,200 per month meant $84,000 in monthly revenue. Over 3 years, that was just over $3 million in total income. Even accounting for business expenses, Brad Whitmore had probably cleared $2 million from his fitness studio. $2 million extracted from lonely, vulnerable women while pretending to help them transform their lives. I pulled out my phone and called Patricia Morrison. I just met with Ashley Henderson, I said. We have our second witness, and she estimates there are at least 20 women total in Brad's operation. 5 serious affairs, 15 paying clients. Patricia whistled. That's not a personal trainer. That's a criminal enterprise. Can we expand the civil suit to include all of them? Make it a class action? Potentially, but that gets complicated.
Different damages, different circumstances, different levels of involvement. She paused. What we can do is use their testimony to establish pattern and practice. The more victims who come forward, the harder it is for Brad to claim your wife was just a one-time mistake. Start the paperwork. I'm going to contact as many of these women as I can. We have 11 weeks until the gala. I want to walk in there with every piece of evidence we need to destroy him. Marcus, Patricia said, her voice careful. I need to make sure you understand what you're signing up for. Contacting these women means inserting yourself into their lives, potentially blowing up their marriages, forcing them to confront painful truths. Some of them will hate you for it. Some will refuse to help. And all of it will be emotionally exhausting for you while you're also dealing with your own divorce. I'm aware. Are you? Because you're a surgeon, you're used to fixing things, to solving problems with precision and logic. But this isn't surgery. These are people with complex emotions and messy situations. You can't just cut out the bad parts and expect everything to heal cleanly. I thought about Ashley Henderson's face when she'd watched the video. The relief mixed with devastation. The gratitude mixed with shame. I know, I said quietly, but someone has to do it. If not me, then who? All right, Patricia sighed, but promise me something. Promise me you'll take care of yourself through this. See a therapist, talk to friends, don't isolate, because you're heading into a war, and even wars fought for the right reasons leave casualties. I promised, knowing I probably wouldn't keep it. I didn't have time for therapy. I had surgeries to perform, a case to build, and 11 weeks to dismantle a con artist's empire. The grief could wait. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. By day, I was Dr.
Marcus Martinez, cardiothoracic surgeon, performing 3 to 4 operations per week with my usual precision.
By night, I was someone else entirely. Investigator, confessor, coordinator of a growing coalition of women who'd been victimized by the same man. Patricia hired a private investigator named Frank Torres, a retired Seattle PD detective who specialized in financial crimes. Frank was 62, built like a fire hydrant, with a face that had seen every kind of human ugliness and stopped being surprised by it somewhere around 1995. This Brad character is small time compared to some of the operations I've seen, Frank told me during our first meeting. But he's smart. He keeps everything just legal enough to avoid criminal charges. The training fees are legitimate business income. The affairs are consensual. The manipulation is emotional, not physical. Prosecuting him criminally would be nearly impossible. But civilly, we can destroy him, especially with multiple witnesses, establishing pattern and practice. Frank pulled out a folder, thick with surveillance photos. I've been following him for 5 days. Want to see his schedule? The photos told the story. Brad, at the Four Seasons at 10 a.m., with a brunette woman I didn't recognize. Brad, at a different hotel at 2 p.m., with Melissa Tran. Brad, at the gym at 6 p.m., training what appeared to be a legitimate client. Brad at a wine bar at 9 p.m. with another woman. He's running 4 to 5 affairs simultaneously, Frank said. Different hotels, different times, different women. He's got the logistics down to a science. The man's a sociopath, or he's got the emotional capacity of a refrigerator. Maybe both. Can you identify all the women? Working on it. But here's where it gets interesting. He pulled out another set of photos. These are from Brad's apartment. He drives a leased Mercedes G-Wagon, lives in a luxury condo in Belltown, wears a Rolex that retails for about $35,000. I ran his credit. He's leveraged to the max. The car lease is $1,800 monthly. Rent is $4,200. He's got $87,000 in credit card debt across 6 cards. He's spending everything he makes. More than he makes, my guess. He's 1 or 2 bad months away from financial collapse. If his client base drops, if women stop paying him, his entire life implodes. Frank smiled grimly. Which gives us leverage. A man in that position will do desperate things to protect his income stream. I thought about the gala, about the ticket sales and donations that Brad was counting on to boost his profile and attract more clients. What happens if we expose him before the gala? I asked. If word gets out about what he's been doing? He loses everything. Clients disappear, income drops to 0, he can't make his lease payments or his rent. Within 3 months, he's bankrupt. Frank leaned back in his chair. But here's the question. Do
Do you want him bankrupt, or do you want him held accountable? What's the difference? Bankruptcy is private. He slinks away, changes his name, moves to another city, starts over. Accountability is public. It's standing in front of everyone who believed in him and watching his reputation burn.
It's every woman he manipulated seeing that she wasn't alone, that it wasn't her fault. It's closure, not just consequences. I understood what he was saying. This wasn't just about money or legal victories.
It was about making sure Brad Whitmore's victims knew they were victims, that they had nothing to be ashamed of, that the shame belonged entirely to the man who'd manipulated them. The gala, I said. We do it at the gala. Then we need to move fast. I'll keep building the evidence file. You keep recruiting witnesses.
And we all pray that nobody tips him off before December 15th. By the end of October, I had contacted 8 women from my original list. The conversations followed a similar pattern. Initial denial. Brad is my trainer.
That's all. Careful, probing. How much are you paying him? How often do you see him? The crack in the facade. Well, we do sometimes meet outside the gym, but it's just for nutrition coaching. The moment of truth. Here's video evidence of Brad with another client.
I have testimony from 4 women so far. You're not alone. 3 women admitted to ongoing affairs. 2 admitted to past affairs they'd ended.
1 was just a client, but confirmed she'd been pressured to buy expensive packages and attend luxury retreats. 2 refused to talk to me and blocked my number. Each woman who agreed to help added to the evidence file. Text messages, receipts, photos, testimony about Brad's manipulation tactics. The pattern was remarkably consistent. Target lonely women with wealthy husbands in demanding careers.
Provide attention and validation they weren't getting at home. Gradually escalate from professional to personal, always making it feel like the woman's idea. Extract maximum money through training fees, retreat packages, and special VIP services. Conduct affairs in hotels and expensive locations, always on the woman's dime. Maintain multiple simultaneous affairs while making each woman feel special and chosen. It was textbook predatory behavior, disguised as wellness coaching.
Melissa Tran was the hardest conversation. She was 41, married to a Microsoft VP, mother of 3 children. She met me at a park near her house, nervous and defensive. I don't know why I'm here, she said, sitting on a bench 20 feet away from where her youngest daughter played on the swings. My husband can't know about this. He absolutely cannot know. Melissa, I'm not here to judge you or expose you. I'm here because you deserve to know you're not the only one. The only what? The only woman Brad is sleeping with while taking money from. I have evidence of at least 5 simultaneous affairs, possibly more. You're not special to him. You're part of a rotation. Her face crumbled. That's not true. Brad and I have something real. He's told me, let me guess. He's told you that you're different from his other clients. That you have a connection that transcends the professional relationship. That he's never felt this way about anyone before. I watched recognition dawn in her eyes. He's told you that your husband doesn't appreciate you, doesn't see you, doesn't make you a priority. And he's positioned himself as the solution to your loneliness. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. How do you know all that? Because he said the exact same things to my wife, and to Ashley Henderson, and to Victoria Brennan, and to every other woman on my list. I pulled out my phone and showed her Frank's surveillance photos.
This is Brad at the Four Seasons last Tuesday at 10 a.m. This is Brad at the Fairmont last Wednesday at 2 p.m. This is Brad at a wine bar Thursday night.
Different women, different locations, same routine. She stared at the photos, her breathing shallow. Oh God, I'm so stupid. You're not stupid. He's a professional manipulator. This is what he does for a living. How much have I paid him? She wasn't asking me. She was asking herself, doing the math in her head the way I had done in my kitchen that first night. 2 years at $4,200 a month. That's over $100,000. Plus the retreats, plus the... She covered her mouth with her hand. My husband is going to divorce me. Maybe. Or maybe he'll understand you were targeted by a con artist who exploited your vulnerability. James works 80 hours a week. I've been lonely for years. That's not an excuse. It's not an excuse, but it's context, and context matters. I sat down on the bench, keeping a respectful distance. Melissa, I can't promise your marriage will survive this, but I can promise that if you help expose Brad, if you stand up with the other women and show your husband that this was part of a systematic pattern of manipulation, you have a better chance than if he finds out some other way. She looked at me, tears still streaming. What do you want from me? Testimony, documentation, your story, in your own words about how Brad operates, and your presence at the gala on December 15th, when we show everyone who Brad Whitmore really is. I can't go to the gala. I bought a table for James and his business partners. We'll be there with 8 other people. I can't. Then you'll be in the perfect position to watch Brad's world fall apart. And afterward, when James asks you what's going on, you can tell him the truth, that you made a mistake, that you were manipulated, and that you're ready to face consequences and rebuild trust. She sat in silence for a long moment, watching her daughter on the swings. Finally, she pulled out her phone. I'll send you everything. Text messages, receipts, all of it. Her voice was steady now, resigned. But, Dr. Martinez, I need you to understand something. What you're doing, exposing Brad publicly like this, it's going to destroy lives. Not just his life, mine, Ashley's, all the other women, our marriages, our reputations, our children's lives. Are you sure the revenge is worth all that collateral damage? I thought about Sarah in the pool house. About 18 years of marriage and $283,000 spent on a lie. About 20 women who'd been manipulated and exploited. About the next round of victims who'd be targeted if Brad was allowed to continue operating. This isn't revenge, I said quietly. It's surgery. Sometimes you have to cut away diseased tissue to save the patient. Yes, there will be pain. Yes, there will be scars, but the alternative is letting the disease spread until everything is infected. She nodded slowly. Okay, I'm in. But when this is all over, when my marriage is destroyed and my kids are asking why mommy did something so terrible, I hope you remember that you were the one who decided public exposure was more important than private healing. She stood up and walked toward her daughter, leaving me alone on the bench. Her words echoed in my mind for the rest of the day. Are you sure the revenge is worth all that collateral damage? By mid-November, I had 11 women willing to provide testimony. The evidence file had grown to over 400 pages of documentation, bank statements, credit card receipts, text messages, emails, photos, sworn statements, surveillance footage from Frank's investigation. Patricia assembled it all into a comprehensive civil complaint against Brad Whitmore. Count 1, tortious interference with marital relations. Count 2, fraud and intentional misrepresentation. Count 3, breach of fiduciary duty. Count 4, emotional distress. Total damages sought, $3.2 million across 11 plaintiffs. This is one of the most comprehensive civil complaints I've ever drafted, Patricia said during our final review meeting. If even half of this evidence is admitted, Brad doesn't have a defense. He'll be lucky to avoid bankruptcy, let alone criminal investigation. What about Sarah? I asked. Your divorce settlement is almost finalized. She's agreed to accept 35% of marital assets instead of 50%, accounting for the documented marital waste. The house is yours, the savings accounts are split. She keeps her BMW, you keep your retirement accounts. Clean break, no alimony, no ongoing financial obligations. She's agreeing to that, no fight. Patricia's expression was carefully neutral. I think once she saw the video and realized we had testimony from other women establishing Brad's pattern of behavior, she understood her position was indefensible. Her lawyer advised her to settle quickly and quietly before more details became public. Has she tried to contact me? 6 times. I've advised her through her lawyer that all communication must go through me. She's not taking the divorce well, from what I understand. I felt a twinge of something. Not quite guilt, not quite sympathy. Just the faint echo of 18 years of caring about someone who'd stopped caring about me. And Brad? Does he know what's coming? Not specifically. But Frank says he's been acting paranoid lately, looking over his shoulder, checking his phone constantly, canceling some client sessions. I think he knows something is wrong, he just doesn't know what. Good. I closed the evidence file. Let him wonder. Let him feel a fraction of the uncertainty and betrayal his victims felt. Patricia studied me across her desk. Marcus, I need to ask you something personal. How are you doing? Really doing? I'm fine. You're not sleeping. You've lost weight. Your colleagues at the hospital told Frank you've been more irritable than usual, snapping at residents, working longer hours than necessary. How did Frank? He's an investigator. It's his job to gather information. And the information he's gathered suggests you're running yourself into the ground. She leaned forward. You're angry, you're hurt, and you're channeling all of that into this case. But Marcus, you're also human.
You need to process what happened to your marriage before you can move forward. I'll process it after the gala. Will you? Or will you just find another project, another problem to solve, another way to avoid feeling what you need to feel? Her words hit harder than I expected, maybe because they were true.
I'd spent 18 years being a surgeon, compartmentalizing emotions, staying focused on the task at hand. It had made me excellent at my job. It had also made me blind to my marriage falling apart until it was too late to save it. I appreciate your concern, I said carefully, but I know what I'm doing. Do you?
Because from where I sit, you're a man who just lost his marriage, discovered his wife's affair, and is now orchestrating a public humiliation of both his ex-wife and her lover. That's a lot of rage to carry around, Marcus. At some point it's going to consume you. Then it will consume me after December 15th. She sighed. All right, but I'm making you promise something right now. After the gala, after this is all over, you're going to take a week off work. You're going to talk to a therapist. You're going to let yourself feel all the things you're avoiding. Deal? Deal. She didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. The week before the gala, I barely slept. My operating schedule was full. A triple bypass on Monday, a valve replacement on Wednesday, an emergency dissection repair on Friday that took 11 hours and left me hollowed out with exhaustion. But even exhaustion didn't stop my mind from running through the plan, over and over, checking every detail, anticipating every possible complication. The process servers were hired and briefed. They'd be at the gala, disguised as catering staff, positioned near the stage where Brad and Sarah would be giving their presentation. The evidence packets were prepared, one for every table at the gala, containing summaries of Brad's operation, testimony excerpts from victims, and a QR code linking to a website with full documentation. The projector was arranged. During Brad's scheduled presentation about his revolutionary approach to transformation, we'd interrupt with a different kind of transformation, a video presentation showing surveillance footage, text messages, and witness testimony. Every detail was planned with surgical precision, except for one complication I hadn't anticipated. Sarah called me directly on December 12th, 3 days before the gala. My phone rang at 11:47 p.m. I was in my home office, reviewing the final evidence files, when her name appeared on my screen. I should have let it go to voicemail. Patricia had told me not to engage directly, but 18 years of muscle memory made my hand reach for the phone before my brain could stop it. Marcus. Her voice was small, broken. Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you. Just once, please. I said nothing, waiting. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But Marcus, please, call off whatever you're planning for the gala. Brad is paranoid, he's suspicious, and I think he knows something is coming. If you do this publicly, it's going to destroy everything. Not just us, not just Brad, everyone. All those women, their families, their children. You mean it will destroy your carefully constructed image as the fitness-empowered wellness guru? That's not fair. Fair. My voice stayed calm, controlled. You spent $283,000 of my money on an affair with a con artist. You betrayed 18 years of marriage. You stood in my pool house and blamed me for your choices. And now you're calling me at midnight, 3 days before I'm planning to expose the whole operation. And you're talking to me about fair. I made mistakes. No, Sarah. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying something hurtful in an argument. What you did was calculated, ongoing betrayal for 18 months. That's not a mistake. That's a choice, a series of choices.
She was crying now. I could hear it in her breathing. I'm asking you, begging you, if you ever loved me, if any part of our marriage meant anything to you, please don't do this. Find another way. Sue Brad privately, expose him quietly, but don't destroy all these women's lives just to prove a point. This isn't about proving a point. It's about preventing him from doing this to the next round of victims. Then report him to the police. File criminal charges. But don't. He hasn't broken any criminal laws, Sarah. Everything he did was technically legal, unethical, manipulative, cruel, but legal. Civil court is the only option.
And public exposure is the only thing that will actually stop him. So, you're willing to sacrifice 11 marriages, 20+ children, dozens of families, just to get revenge on Brad? I'm willing to accept that short-term pain for long-term protection. I'm willing to trust that these women are strong enough to survive the truth coming out. And I'm willing to believe that marriages built on lies and manipulation should be destroyed so something healthier can be built in their place. Silence on the other end. Then, you've changed. The Marcus I married would never be this cold. The Marcus you married was a fool who thought devotion and sacrifice earned loyalty. You taught me otherwise. I should thank you for that lesson. Marcus. I hung up. My hands were shaking, not from rage or fear, from something else. Something that felt like grief finally forcing its way to the surface, demanding to be acknowledged. I sat in my office, surrounded by evidence of betrayal, and let myself feel it. The loss of 18 years. The death of the future I'd imagined. The man I'd been, the man I'd become, and the vast chasm between them. Patricia was right. I'd been avoiding this. Channeling everything into the case, into the planning, into the cold satisfaction of orchestrated revenge. But underneath it all, I was just a man whose wife had stopped loving him and who'd been too busy to notice until it was catastrophically too late. I pulled out my phone and looked at old photos. Sarah and me on our wedding day, both of us so young and hopeful. Sarah and me at my medical school graduation. Sarah and me at the closing on our house, holding up keys and grinning like we'd conquered the world. When had it gone wrong? Was there a single moment, or had it been 1,000 small moments I'd been too preoccupied to notice? The answer didn't matter anymore. The marriage was over. The only question was whether the man I'd become was someone I could live with once the dust settled. 3 days until the gala. 3 days until I found out. The Columbia Tower Club occupied the 76th floor of Seattle's tallest building, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Elliott Bay, the Space Needle, and the Olympic Mountains beyond. On clear December nights like this one, the city glittered below like a circuit board, millions of lights mapping out the lives of people who had no idea their social hierarchy was about to be violently rearranged. I arrived at 6:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the official start time, early enough to observe arrivals, late enough not to draw attention. I'd dressed carefully, charcoal suit, white shirt, burgundy tie. Professional, respectable, the uniform of a man who belonged in rooms like this. The entrance was decorated with branded banners. Brad's Elite, Fitness First Annual Charity Gala, transforming bodies, transforming lives. A professional photographer captured guests as they arrived, all of them dressed in cocktail attire that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. I recognized several faces from my research. Ashley Henderson in a navy blue dress, arriving with her husband David, tall, thin, awkward in his tuxedo, checking his phone obsessively. She caught my eye as she entered and gave me the smallest nod. She was ready. Melissa Tran arrived moments later with her husband James, a broad-shouldered man with graying temples and the confident posture of someone accustomed to being the smartest person in the room. Melissa looked terrified, her hand gripping James's arm like it was the only thing keeping her upright. She didn't look at me. Victoria Brennan, Rachel Kim, Jennifer Caldwell, Jim Henderson's daughter, who'd settled with Brad in 2021 and was now breaking her NDA to stand witness. One by one, the women I'd recruited over the past 2 months arrived with their unsuspecting partners, all of them playing their parts in the social theater that was about to become a crime scene. Frank Torres was already inside, dressed as catering staff, a wireless earpiece connecting him to the process servers stationed throughout the venue.
Patricia Morrison sat at a table near the back, ostensibly as my guest but actually serving as legal counsel in case anything went sideways. Everything was in position. At 6:58 p.m., a silver Mercedes G-Wagon pulled up to the valet stand. Brad emerged first, wearing a tailored navy suit that probably cost $3,000. His hair perfectly styled, his smile bright as a game show host. He moved with the easy confidence of a man who thought he'd conquered the world. Sarah stepped out after him, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. She wore a red dress I'd never seen before. Fitted, elegant, stunning. Her hair was styled in soft waves, her makeup perfect. She looked like success, like transformation, like the physical embodiment of Brad's marketing materials. She also looked terrified. Her smile was too wide, too forced. Her hand trembled slightly as she took Brad's arm. Her eyes scanned the crowd with the desperate awareness of prey that knows predators are near, but can't identify which direction they'll strike from. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know what. Brad and Sarah posed for the photographer, his arm around her waist, both of them projecting the image of wellness power couple, transformation gurus, people who had it all figured out. The photographer called out directions. Closer! Big smiles! Perfect. And they performed their roles flawlessly. I watched from the shadows near the bar, a glass of water in my hand, and felt absolutely nothing. Not anger, not grief, not satisfaction. Just the calm, focused attention I brought to every surgery. The patient was prepped. The incision site was marked. Time to operate. The gala followed the predictable rhythm of charity events. Cocktail hour with open bar and passed appetizers. Dinner service with rubber chicken and undressed salad. Speeches from local celebrities and donors. Then the main presentation from the evening's hosts. I sat at a table near the middle of the room, not too close to draw attention, not too far to miss anything. My table mates were strangers, wealthy couples who'd bought tickets to support youth wellness initiatives and were more interested in networking than actually listening to speeches. Brad worked the room during cocktail hour, like a politician on the campaign trail, shaking hands, offering personal greetings, remembering names, making each person feel special and seen. I watched him stop at Melissa Tran's table, watched him lean down to whisper something in her ear that made her blush and look away. Her husband, James, noticed, frowned slightly, then returned to his conversation with the man beside him. Brad's hand lingered on Melissa's shoulder for 3 seconds too long, a proprietary touch, a marking of territory. Then he moved on to the next table, the next woman, the next performance. Sarah stayed closer to the stage area, directing caterers and event staff with nervous energy. She was co-chair in name, but servant in function, making sure everything was perfect for Brad's big night. At 8:15 p.m., dinner was served. At 8:47 p.m., the speeches began. A local news anchor talked about the importance of youth fitness. A city council member praised Brad's commitment to community wellness. A woman whose daughter had participated in one of Brad's junior training programs shared a tearful testimony about transformation and empowerment. The audience applauded, moved by stories of positive change. They had no idea what positive change actually looked like. At 9:23 p.m., the MC took the stage. And now please welcome the man of the hour, the visionary behind elite fitness, the person who's transformed hundreds of lives here in Seattle. Brad Whitmore. The room erupted in applause. Brad bounded onto the stage with athletic grace, his smile megawatt bright, his presence commanding. He took the microphone with practiced ease. Thank you so much. Wow, what an incredible turnout. He paused for effect, letting the applause build. When I started Elite Fitness 4 years ago, I had a simple mission: to help people become the best versions of themselves. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. More applause. Sarah stood at the side of the stage, beaming with what looked like pride, but was probably relief that the evening was proceeding smoothly.
Tonight, we've raised over $150,000 for youth wellness programs in underserved communities. That's 150,000 reasons to be proud. That's 150,000 chances for kids who might not otherwise have access to quality fitness training and nutrition education. The crowd loved it. They were eating out of his hand.
But I want to be honest with you, all tonight. Brad's tone shifted, becoming more intimate, more vulnerable. This isn't just about fitness. It's about connection. It's about seeing people, really seeing them, and helping them recognize their own worth, their own power, their own potential. I felt my jaw tighten. He was good.
Charismatic, authentic seeming, every word carefully crafted to make people feel understood and valued. I want to introduce someone who embodies that philosophy completely.
Someone who's been instrumental in building elite fitness into what it is today. Someone who understands transformation on a deeply personal level. He extended his hand toward the side of the stage. Please welcome my incredible co-chair, Sarah Martinez. Sarah walked onto the stage, her smile bright but brittle. The audience applauded. She took the microphone Brad offered her, their fingers touching for a moment longer than necessary. Thank you, Brad, and thank you all for being here tonight. Her voice was steady, practiced. 3 years ago, I was lost. My life felt small, purposeless. And then I walked into Brad's studio, and everything changed. I watched her tell our story, the story of our marriage, as if I'd been the villain all along, the absent husband, the workaholic who didn't appreciate her, the man who'd stopped seeing her as a person and started seeing her as furniture. Some of it was true. Much of it was manipulated. All of it was painful to hear in front of 200 strangers. Brad taught me that I deserved more, that I deserved to be seen, to be valued, to take up space in the world. She looked at him, and for a moment, something genuine flickered across her face. Maybe regret, maybe grief. He taught me what transformation really means. The audience was silent, captivated by the raw emotion in her voice. This was the moment. I pulled out my phone and sent a single text to Frank Torres. Go. The lights dimmed suddenly, unexpectedly. The audience murmured in confusion. Brad and Sarah exchanged glances on stage, both looking toward the lighting booth. Then the projection screen behind them flickered to life. The first image was simple. A title card in white text on black background. Brad's Elite Fitness. The Real Transformation. Brad's smile faltered. Sarah went pale. What is this? Brad called out to the darkness. Someone shut that off. This isn't part of the presentation. But the presentation continued. The next slide showed a photograph. Brad, with his arm around a woman at the Four Seasons Hotel. The timestamp read 10:47 a.m., Tuesday, October 15th. The woman's face was pixelated for privacy, but her body language made the nature of their relationship clear. Turn it off! Brad's voice rose, losing its careful modulation. This is not, someone needs to. Another photo. Brad, with a different woman at a different hotel, then another, then another. 4 images in rapid succession, each showing Brad in intimate proximity with women who were clearly not professional training clients. The audience's murmuring grew louder. People pulled out their phones, some recording, some texting, some simply staring in confusion. Sarah stood frozen on stage, her hand over her mouth. The presentation shifted to text. Between 2021 and 2024, Brad Whitmore conducted simultaneous affairs with at least 11 married women while receiving payment for personal training services. Total documented payments from these women, $1,847,000. Average monthly payment per client, $4,200. Services actually rendered, minimal to none. Brad jumped off the stage, heading toward the projection booth. Stop this right now! This is defamation! This is... But Frank Torres stepped into his path, blocking him. Other catering staff, actually, process, servers, moved to strategic positions throughout the room. The presentation continued, now showing text message screenshots with names redacted, but content visible. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. The Four Seasons at 11. I'll wear that dress you like. My husband is working late again. Perfect timing for us. The $4,200 cleared. Thanks for being so understanding about my intensive training needs, lol. You make me feel things I haven't felt in years. My husband doesn't even notice me anymore. The audience was no longer confused. They were horrified, fascinated, unable to look away. A woman's voice called out from the crowd. "Oh my God, Brad, tell me this isn't true." Another voice. "Is that why you wanted me to pay in cash? So, your business wouldn't have records?" Brad spun around, his face red, his composure completely shattered. "This is a setup. Someone is trying to destroy my reputation with fake evidence, and it's not fake." Ashley Henderson stood up at her table, her voice shaking but clear. Her husband, David, stared at her in shock. "It's not fake," Ashley repeated, louder now. "I'm one of the women in those messages. Brad and I had an affair for 18 months. I paid him over $75,000 during that time, and I wasn't the only one." The room exploded with noise. Questions shouted, accusations thrown, the careful social order disintegrating in real time. Melissa Tran stood up next, tears streaming down her face. "I'm another one. 2 years. Over $100,000. She turned to her husband, James, who sat frozen in his seat. "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, but he manipulated me. He manipulated all of us." Victoria Brennan rose. Then Rachel Kim. Then 3 other women I'd contacted, all standing simultaneously, all confirming their involvement. 9 women standing in front of their partners, their friends, their community, admitting to affairs and financial exploitation. The projection screen shifted again, now showing a legal document. Civil complaint. 11 plaintiffs versus Bradley James Whitmore. Charges: tortious interference with marital relations, fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Total damages sought: $347,000. Frank Torres moved toward the stage, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "Bradley James Whitmore, you've been served." He handed Brad the legal papers. Brad stared at them, his face cycling through emotions too fast to track. Shock, rage, fear, calculation. 2 more servers moved through the crowd, handing envelopes to other attendees. Not process papers, information packets, evidence summaries, testimony excerpts, QR codes linking to the full documentation website. People opened the packets, reading, sharing with their neighbors, their phones coming out to scan codes and access the full evidence. Sarah remained on stage, paralyzed, watching her carefully constructed world implode in real time. Then she saw me. I'd stood up from my table and moved closer to the stage, positioning myself where she couldn't miss me. Our eyes met across the chaos, and in that moment, I saw her understand. This wasn't random. This wasn't some vigilante whistleblower. This was me, her husband, the man she'd betrayed. Her face crumbled. She tried to speak into the microphone, but no words came out. Brad, however, found his voice. He jumped back onto the stage, grabbing Sarah's microphone. "This is Marcus Martinez." He pointed directly at me. "This is a bitter ex-husband who can't accept that his wife chose someone else. He's manufacturing evidence, manipulating these women, trying to destroy me because you're a con artist." I spoke clearly, my surgeon's voice carrying through the room, without need for amplification.
"Because you systematically targeted vulnerable women, exploited their loneliness, extracted hundreds of thousands of dollars while conducting multiple simultaneous affairs. Because you're not a wellness coach.
You're a predator in designer athletic wear." "That's defamation," Brad's voice cracked. "You can't prove any of—" "I can prove all of it." I pulled out my phone and held it up. "I have video evidence of you with my wife in my pool house.
I have bank records showing payments. I have testimony from 11 women. I have surveillance footage from private investigators. I have your own text messages admitting to the affairs."
"What I don't have, Brad, is any patience left for your performance." The room had gone silent except for the sound of camera phones clicking, recording, capturing every moment for social media immortality. Brad's face went from red to purple. For a moment, I thought he might charge at me. His fists clenched, his body tensed, every muscle preparing for physical violence. But Frank Torres was already moving up onto the stage, positioning himself between Brad and the crowd. "Mr. Whitmore, I'd strongly advise you to consult with legal counsel before saying anything else." "Legal counsel?" Brad laughed, a harsh, desperate sound. For what? Having consensual relationships with clients. That's not illegal. I haven't done anything wrong. You committed fraud. Patricia Morrison stood up from her table, her voice cutting through the chaos with legal precision.
You represented yourself as a certified fitness professional when your only credential is a 6-week online course. You charged premium prices for services you weren't qualified to provide.
You exploited fiduciary relationships with clients for sexual access. And you did it all while conducting a systematic pattern of deception for financial gain. She walked toward the stage, every eye in the room following her. You can argue that the affairs were consensual. You can argue that the women knew what they were paying for. But what you can't argue, she pulled out a thick folder from her briefcase, is that you didn't knowingly and intentionally destroy marriages for profit. 11 marriages, 11 families for $1.8 million in documented payments. That's not romance, Mr. Whitmore. That's racketeering. Brad looked around the room, seeing his entire client base staring at him with expressions ranging from disgust to rage to grim satisfaction. The women who'd been his victims stood united. The men who'd been their husbands sat in various states of shock and fury. His empire was collapsing in real time, every brick falling away to reveal the rot underneath. "Sarah," he said, turning to her desperately. "Sarah, tell them. Tell them it wasn't like that. Tell them what we had was real." Sarah looked at him, then at me, then at the crowd of 200 people watching her every move. "I can't," she whispered into the microphone, her voice breaking. "I can't do this anymore." She set down the microphone, walked off the stage, and headed straight for the exit, her red dress disappearing into the elevator bank before anyone could stop her. Brad stood alone on the stage, the spotlight harsh and unforgiving, his carefully crafted persona shattered beyond repair. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I have lawyers. I'll fight this. You'll lose." I said it quietly, but in the silence of the room, everyone heard. "You'll lose in court. You'll lose your business. You'll lose your reputation. You'll spend the next 5 years paying legal fees and settlements. And when it's all over, you'll be a cautionary tale. The fitness instructor who thought he was smarter than everyone else and learned he wasn't." I turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at him one more time. "Transformation is painful, Brad. But you taught me that. Consider this your own personal transformation journey." The elevator ride down 76 floors felt longer than any surgery I'd ever performed. Patricia, Frank, and I stood in silence, watching the numbers descend. My phone was exploding with notifications. Text messages, emails, missed calls. I ignored all of them. Patricia searched for words. "That was the most dramatic legal proceeding I've ever been part of. And I've been doing this for 23 years. Did we get everything on record?" I asked. Frank nodded. 4 video cameras, including mine. Every word documented. Brad's threat of violence, his admission of the relationships, his attempted deflection. It's all admissible. What happens now? Now. Patricia pulled out her phone, already scrolling through news alerts. Now it goes viral. We have a Twitter hashtag trending, Brad's Elite Fitness. Instagram stories from at least 40 people in attendance. Video clips being shared across every platform. By morning, Brad Whitmore will be the most infamous personal trainer in Seattle. And the women? Her expression softened. That's the hard part. They're facing consequences, too. Angry spouses, damaged reputations, difficult conversations with children and friends. Some of those marriages won't survive. Some will, but they'll never be the same. Melissa Tran asked me if the revenge was worth the collateral damage. I watched the floor numbers descend. I told her it wasn't revenge. It was surgery. Was it? I thought about Sarah's face when she'd seen me in the crowd. About Brad's empire crumbling in front of 200 witnesses. About 11 women standing up to admit their mistakes and their victimization. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "Ask me in 6 months." The elevator doors opened onto the ground floor. Outside, through the glass doors, I could see people streaming out of the building, clustering in groups, their phones glowing in the darkness, as they processed what they'd witnessed. Ashley Henderson stood near the entrance with her husband David. They weren't touching, but they were talking. Really talking. David's face serious, Ashley's expression desperate but honest. Melissa Tran sat on a bench alone, her husband James nowhere to be seen. She was crying, but she wasn't hiding. She'd pulled out her phone and was typing something. Probably an explanation, probably an apology, probably the beginning of whatever came next. Victoria Brennan walked past with her husband, both silent, both shell-shocked, but still together. The women I'd recruited to testify. They'd made their choices. They'd stood up, told their truths, accepted their consequences. Whatever happened next, they'd face it with the knowledge that they'd stopped a predator from creating more victims. That had to count for something. Patricia touched my arm. Marcus, there's going to be media attention. Reporters will want interviews. You should prepare for no interviews, no statements. Let the court documents speak for themselves. People will want to hear from you. The wronged husband, the whistleblower, the man who brought down. I'm not a hero, Patricia. I'm just someone who got angry enough to do what needed to be done. I looked at her directly. The women are the story, not me. Make sure the media understands that. She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. All right, I'll handle the media strategy. You go home, get some sleep, and prepare for what comes next. What does come next? Brad will fight the civil suit. It'll take months, maybe years. But based on tonight's evidence and his public admission, we'll win. He'll probably declare bankruptcy, which means the women won't get their full damages, but they'll get enough. His business is finished, his reputation is destroyed, and every future victim who Googles his name will find tonight's disaster as the top result. Good. I walked out of the Columbia Tower into the December night. The air was cold and clear, the city lights bright against the dark sky. My car was in the valet lot, but I didn't feel like driving yet. Instead, I walked down 4th Avenue, past the late-night bars and restaurants, past people living their normal Friday night lives, completely unaware that somewhere above them, on the 76th floor of the tallest building in the city, a man's world had ended. My phone rang. Sarah's number. I let it ring through to voicemail. It rang again. I turned off my phone. At Pike Place Market, closed and dark at this hour, I stopped at the railing overlooking Elliott Bay. The water was black and infinite, reflecting the lights of ferries crossing to Bainbridge Island. For the first time in 3 months, since the day I'd come home early and found Sarah with Brad, I let myself feel the full weight of what I'd lost. 18 years of marriage, the dreams we'd shared, the future we'd planned, the children we'd never had, the retirement we'd never enjoy together. All of it, gone. I hadn't just lost my wife. I'd lost my entire vision of who I was supposed to be. Dr. Marcus Martinez, successful surgeon, devoted husband, man who did everything right and expected life to reward him for it. That person didn't exist anymore. In his place stood someone harder, colder, more calculating, someone who'd orchestrated the public destruction of 2 people in front of 200 witnesses, someone who'd used the law like a scalpel, cutting away everything that had hurt him and accepting the collateral damage as necessary. I didn't know if I liked this person, but I understood him. The water lapped against the pilings below, rhythmic and eternal. Somewhere in the city behind me, Brad Whitmore was probably in crisis mode, calling lawyers, trying to spin the disaster. Sarah was probably crying, alone, realizing that the transformation she'd sought had transformed her into someone she didn't recognize. And me. I was standing at a railing, looking at dark water, wondering if revenge had made me whole, or if it had just created a different kind of emptiness. Patricia's voice echoed in my mind. You're going to take a week off work. You're going to talk to a therapist. You're going to let yourself feel all the things you're avoiding. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I'd start processing everything I'd been avoiding. Tonight, I'd just stand here and breathe and accept that the man I'd been 3 months ago was never coming back. And maybe that was okay. Maybe transformation was supposed to hurt. The Seattle Times ran the story on Sunday morning, 2 days after the gala. The headline was restrained. Local fitness trainer faces civil suit from multiple clients. but the article itself laid out the facts with journalistic precision. 11 plaintiffs, $3.2 million in damages sought, allegations of fraud and emotional manipulation, dramatic revelations at charity event. By Monday, the story had gone national. CNN picked it up as a human interest piece. The New York Times ran an op-ed about wellness culture and the vulnerable women it exploits. TMZ called Brad the Tiger Woods of personal training, which was offensive to both men in different ways. I watched it all unfold from my living room. My phone silenced, my hospital pager the only connection to the outside world I allowed myself. Patricia called twice a day with updates. Brad had hired a lawyer, a sleazy operator named Marcus Chen, no relation, who specialized in defending the indefensible. They were preparing a countersuit, claiming defamation, emotional distress, and conspiracy to damage Brad's reputation. It said it's all posturing, Patricia assured me. Brad doesn't have the money for a prolonged legal fight. His business income dried up overnight. Elite Fitness Studio's website crashed from traffic, then went dark permanently. His Instagram account was deleted after receiving thousands of hate messages. He's broke, Marcus. Within 3 months, he'll be negotiating settlement. The women faced their own reckonings. Ashley Henderson's marriage survived. Barely. David, her software engineer husband, posted a long statement on Facebook about forgiveness, manipulation, and choosing to fight for their relationship. The post went semi-viral, with thousands of comments debating whether he was a saint or a fool. I thought he was probably both. Melissa Tran's marriage didn't survive. James filed for divorce 6 days after the gala, citing irreconcilable differences. But he also released a statement through his lawyer, acknowledging that his wife had been targeted by a predatory individual and that he held no ill will toward her. The divorce would be amicable, civilized, and final. Victoria Brennan and her husband went to couples therapy. Rachel Kim and her husband separated temporarily, working through things with a marriage counselor. Jennifer Caldwell, who'd broken her NDA to testify, received death threats online from Brad's remaining supporters and had to hire private security. Every woman paid a price for standing up, and I was the one who'd asked them to pay it. On December 22nd, 1 week after the gala, I received a letter delivered by courier. Expensive stationery, Sarah's handwriting, my name written in the careful script she'd practiced in high school when she'd dreamed of being a calligrapher. I almost threw it away unread, but 18 years of muscle memory made me open it instead. Marcus, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to ask anything of you after what I've done, but I need you to understand something, even if it doesn't change anything. You were right about all of it. Brad manipulated me. He made me feel special, chosen, important, all the things I'd stopped feeling in our marriage. But it was never real. I see that now. He was running a con, and I was marked number 1, the main target, the biggest payoff. I spent $283,000 of our money on a lie. I destroyed 18 years of marriage for a fantasy, and the worst part, I blamed you for it. I told myself you were the problem. Too busy, too absent, too focused on work to see me. But the truth is, I stopped seeing myself. I stopped being someone worth seeing. Brad didn't give me value. He sold me back my own emptiness at premium prices. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. But I need you to know that what you did at the gala, exposing him, stopping him, saving those other women from going through what I went through, it was the right thing to do. Even though it humiliated me, even though it destroyed any chance we had of reconciling quietly, it was right. You asked me once if I ever loved you. The answer is yes. I loved the man you were in medical school when we were struggling together. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being the woman who loved that man. I became someone else. Someone shallow and selfish and desperate for validation from anyone who'd give it. I'm moving to Portland next month. Fresh start, new city, therapy, 3 times a week. I'm going back to nursing, starting over at 47 with an entry-level position at Oregon Health Sciences. It's humbling. It's necessary. I hope you find happiness, Marcus. Real happiness. Not the performance of happiness we had for the last few years. You deserve someone who sees your value without needing a con artist to teach them how. I'm sorry for everything. Sarah, I read the letter 3 times, sitting at my kitchen table. with cold coffee and morning light slanting through the windows. She was right about some things, wrong about others, but mostly, she was just gone. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd loved, the woman who'd promised to support my medical career while I supported her dreams. That person had disappeared years ago. Maybe she'd never existed at all. Maybe we'd both been playing roles, performing marriage, waiting for someone to call cut and let us stop pretending. I folded the letter carefully and put it in the filing cabinet with the divorce papers, the prenup, all the evidence of our life together, and its dissolution. Then I picked up my phone and called the number Patricia had given me 3 weeks ago. Dr. Catherine Wells' office, a receptionist answered. I'd like to schedule an appointment, I said, for therapy, as soon as possible. Dr. Catherine Wells was 63, with steel gray hair cut short, and a face that had clearly seen every variety of human dysfunction and stopped judging it somewhere around 1995. Her office was in Fremont, decorated with plants and abstract art and diplomas from Stanford and UW. I don't usually take new patients during the holidays, she said during our first session on December 27th. But Patricia Morrison is a friend, and she said you were in crisis. Are you in crisis, Dr. Martinez? I don't know. Maybe. I orchestrated the public humiliation of my ex-wife and her lover in front of 200 people. Does that count as crisis? She smiled faintly. That depends. Do you regret doing it? No. Do you feel guilty about the consequences? Sometimes, the women who testified, they're paying a price for helping me. Some of their marriages are ending. Their kids are affected. Their reputations are damaged. I paused. But they're also free from a predator who would have kept exploiting them. So is it guilt, or is it just awareness of necessary cost? What do you think? I hated that therapeutic trick, answering questions with questions, but I engaged anyway. I think I'm angry at myself for not seeing what was happening sooner, angry at Sarah for making me the villain in her story when I was just absent, angry at Brad for being a con artist. Angry at the whole situation for forcing me to become someone I don't recognize. Who do you recognize when you look in the mirror now? I thought about it. Someone colder, more calculating. Someone who can cut away relationships and feel nothing. Someone who's very good at surgery, in every sense of the word. And is that person someone you can live with? I don't know yet. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, Seattle winter rain drummed against the windows. Marcus, Dr. Wells said, gently. You're a surgeon. You've spent your entire adult life training yourself to compartmentalize emotions, to stay focused during crisis, to make life or death decisions without flinching. Those skills kept you alive in the OR. But they're also the skills that let your marriage die, without you noticing. I noticed. I just didn't know what to do about it. Did you? Or did you assume that if you just kept working, kept providing, kept being the responsible one, everything else would sort itself out? The question landed like a scalpel between ribs. Sarah told me I had a God complex about saving everyone, I said quietly. She was right. I thought if I saved enough hearts, if I worked hard enough, if I made enough money, our marriage would be fine. I thought devotion was measured in hours worked and dollars earned. And now I know devotion is measured in presence, in paying attention, in asking the hard questions before everything falls apart. I looked at Dr. Wells. But I also know that Sarah made her choices. I didn't force her into Brad's bed. I didn't make her spend $283,000 on an affair. At some point, her decisions belong to her, not me. Both things can be true. You can acknowledge your role in the marriage's decline while also holding Sarah accountable for her choices. They're not mutually exclusive. Then how do I move forward? How do I become someone who can have a healthy relationship without turning into the workaholic who ignores his partner or the controlling person who orchestrates public revenge? She leaned back in her chair. That's not a question I can answer for you, but I can tell you this. Transformation is a process, not an event. You didn't become who you are overnight. You won't become who you want to be overnight either. It requires intention, practice, and willingness to be uncomfortable. I'm a surgeon. I can handle discomfort. Can you? Because surgery has clear rules, protocols, procedures, best practices. Emotional growth doesn't.
It's messy and uncertain, and there's no guidebook for cutting away exactly the right amount of scar tissue while leaving enough healthy tissue to heal. She was right, of course. I scheduled appointments for every Thursday at 4 p.m. after my surgical shifts, but before the weight of the day could drive me home to isolation. Brad's legal countersuit was dropped in February.
His lawyer filed a statement saying they were pursuing other options, which was lawyer speak, for we have no case and no money to pursue it. By March, Brad had filed for bankruptcy. His assets were liquidated. The Mercedes G-Wagon, his furniture, his Rolex, everything with any value. The money went toward settling with the 11 plaintiffs, who each received between $40,000 and $120,000, depending on their documented losses. It wasn't full restitution. It was never going to be full restitution. But it was acknowledgement. It was validation. It was Brad's entire life being dismantled and distributed to the women he'd victimized. Sarah got nothing from the settlement. She'd waived her right to sue Brad as part of our divorce agreement, choosing to accept responsibility for her choices rather than continuing to position herself as a victim. I respected her for that. In April, I received a wedding invitation. Ashley Henderson and David were renewing their vows. A private ceremony with close family only, followed by a larger reception for friends. The invitation included a handwritten note. Dr. Martinez, David and I wouldn't have made it without your intervention. What you did was painful, but it saved our marriage by forcing us to confront truths we'd been avoiding. We'd be honored if you could attend.
Ashley, I sent a generous gift and a card declining the invitation. Some bridges once crossed shouldn't be recrossed. By summer, I'd reduced my surgical schedule from 80 hours a week to 55. Still demanding, still intense, but with space for therapy appointments, dinners with colleagues, occasional hikes in the Cascades. I started dating again in June, tentatively, awkwardly, like a man who'd forgotten how to interact with women outside of professional contexts. Coffee dates that went nowhere, dinner conversations that felt like job interviews. One promising connection that fizzled after 3 dates when she Googled my name and found the gala story. I'm just not sure I'm ready to date someone with that much intensity, she said kindly. You seem like you're still processing a lot. She was right. I was. But slowly, incrementally, I was becoming someone who could process without destroying. Someone who could feel anger without weaponizing it. Someone who could recognize grief without drowning in it. Dr. Wells called it integration, bringing together the surgeon who could compartmentalize and the human who could feel, creating someone who could do both, depending on what the situation required. I called it learning to be a person again. On December 15th, 2025, exactly 1 year after the gala, I took the day off work. No surgeries, no appointments, no obligations.
I drove to Snoqualmie Falls, about an hour east of Seattle, and hiked the trail to the viewing platform. The falls thundered down 268 feet, mist rising in clouds, rainbows flickering in the spray. I stood at the railing and thought about everything that had happened in the past year. Brad Whitmore had moved to Phoenix, Arizona, working as a nutritional consultant under a different name. His social media presence was minimal, his reputation destroyed beyond repair in Seattle. Last I heard through Patricia's network, he was dating a woman 20 years his senior who owned a successful real estate business. Old habits, apparently, died hard. Sarah was in Portland, working as a nurse at Oregon Health Sciences like she'd said she would. Her Instagram, which I'd looked at exactly once in a moment of weakness, showed her living a quiet life. Hiking photos, coffee shop selfies, occasional pictures with new friends. No fitness content, no transformation posts, just a woman rebuilding a life from honest foundations. The women who'd testified were scattered across their own healing journeys. Some marriages survived, some didn't, but all of them, according to Patricia, had emerged with clearer boundaries, better self-awareness, and the knowledge that they'd stopped a predator from creating more victims. That had to count for something. As for me, I was standing at a waterfall on a Wednesday afternoon, alone but not lonely, thinking about the difference between justice and revenge and healing. Justice, I'd decided, was external. It was courts and settlements and legal consequences for bad behavior. Revenge was personal. It was the satisfaction of watching someone who'd hurt you face consequences you'd orchestrated. But healing was internal. It was the work of becoming someone who could acknowledge pain without being defined by it. Someone who could remember betrayal without being consumed by it. Someone who could open up again without fear of being destroyed. I wasn't there yet, but I was closer than I'd been a year ago. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Chen, my colleague at the hospital. Emergency dissection incoming. Can you consult? I looked at the message, then at the falls, then back at the message.
A year ago, I would have said yes immediately. Work was identity. Surgery was purpose. The hospital was home. Today, I typed back, I can be there in 90 minutes. Call Dr. Patel for immediate consult. I'll take over when I arrive.
Then I put my phone away and stood at the railing for 30 more minutes, watching water cascade endlessly downward, listening to the roar, breathing cold mountain air. The dissection would wait. The patient would survive. Dr. Patel was competent.
And I was finally learning that my worth wasn't measured solely in how many lives I saved or how many hours I worked. Sometimes the most important surgery was the one you performed on yourself, cutting away the parts that didn't serve you anymore, being willing to bleed a little while the new growth formed, trusting that healing was possible even when you couldn't see.
The final result. 6 months later, in June 2026, I met someone. Her name was Elena. She was a bioethicist at UW Medical Center, specializing in end-of-life care and medical decision-making. We met at a hospital conference about surgical ethics, bonded over a shared frustration with administrative bureaucracy, and discovered we both loved hiking, good coffee, and the kind of deep conversations that usually happened at 2 a.m., but somehow felt natural at 2 p.m. On our third date, walking through the Washington Park Arboretum, she asked about my divorce. I'd been dreading this conversation. Most people knew the story. It had been public, viral, impossible to escape if you lived in Seattle and paid attention to news. I know about the gala, Elena said when I hesitated. Everyone knows about the gala.
I'm asking about the person you were before that. The husband, the man who let his marriage die while he was busy saving everyone else. The question should have felt like an attack. Instead, it felt like an invitation to honesty. I was someone who thought love was measured in sacrifice, I said slowly. I worked myself to exhaustion thinking that if I just provided enough, earned enough, sacrificed enough, my wife would be happy.
I was wrong. Why? Because she didn't need a provider. She needed a partner. Someone present, engaged, willing to do the hard work of connection, instead of assuming money and devotion, were enough. We walked in silence for a moment, past flowering rhododendrons and Japanese maples. And now, Elena asked, who are you now? Someone who's learning that presence matters more than provision, that healthy relationships require both people showing up, being honest, doing the work, that you can't save someone who doesn't want to save themselves. She nodded slowly. I'm divorced too. My ex-husband was an attorney, always working, never home. I spent 5 years trying to be understanding, supportive, patient. Then one day I realized I'd been patient for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to have needs of my own. What happened? I asked for a divorce. He was shocked, thought everything was fine, because I never complained. But everything wasn't fine. I'd just gotten really good at pretending. She looked at me directly. I'm not going to pretend anymore, Marcus. If we do this, if we try this, I need you to be someone who can be present. Not perfect, not always available, but present when you're here. Can you do that? It was the most honest question anyone had asked me in years. I don't know, I said, but I want to try. Then, let's try. 18 months after the gala, I performed my 1000th successful cardiac surgery. The hospital threw a small celebration in the surgeon's lounge. Cake, champagne, awkward speeches from administrators. Dr. Patel, my former resident who was now a junior attending, pulled me aside after the festivities. Dr. Martinez, can I ask you something personal? Go ahead. Do you ever regret what you did? The gala, the public exposure, all of it. I thought about the question carefully. I regret that women had to face consequences for standing up. I regret that some marriages ended. I regret that children were affected by their parents' choices. I paused. But do I regret stopping Brad Whitmore? No. Do I regret forcing accountability? No. Do I regret becoming someone who could face ugly truths instead of hiding from them? Absolutely not, even though it cost you your marriage. My marriage was already over. I just hadn't admitted it yet. The gala didn't cost me my marriage. It revealed that my marriage had been dead for years, and I'd been too busy working to notice the smell. She laughed, then caught herself. Sorry, that's dark. It's accurate. I looked at her seriously. Dr. Patel, you're an excellent surgeon. You'll probably make attending before you're 35, build a brilliant career, save thousands of lives. But don't make my mistake. Don't let your work become your only identity. Don't measure your worth solely in how many hours you clock or how many hearts you repair. Because surgery is what we do. It's not who we are. Who are you then? If not a surgeon. I thought about Elena, waiting at my house to cook dinner together. About my Thursday therapy appointments with Dr. Wells. About the hiking group I'd joined. The book club I occasionally attended. The life I was building outside the hospital. I'm figuring that out, I said. And that's okay. 3 years after the gala, on a cold December evening, I was having dinner with Elena at our favorite restaurant in Ballard when I saw her. Sarah. She was across the restaurant sitting with a man I didn't recognize. Balding, maybe 50, dressed casually but well. They were laughing about something, comfortable with each other in the way people get when they've been together long enough to run out of performance energy. She looked different. Older, yes, but also more real. No perfect makeup, no expensive clothes, just jeans and a sweater, and the kind of natural beauty that came from not trying so hard. Our eyes met for a moment across the crowded restaurant. She smiled, small, sad, acknowledging. I nodded back. Then we both returned to our respective dinners, our respective lives, our respective healing. Elena noticed the exchange. Someone you know. Someone I used to know. Do you want to leave? No, I said, meaning it. I'm exactly where I want to be. And I was. Not because I'd gotten revenge or won some moral victory or proved I was right and she was wrong, but because I'd learned what Sarah had been trying to tell me all along in her own broken way. That transformation isn't about becoming perfect or proving you're better than the people who hurt you. It's about becoming someone who can sit in a restaurant 3 years after your marriage exploded, see your ex-wife happy with someone else, and feel genuinely glad she found her way to something healthier. It's about forgiving yourself for the mistakes you made while still holding yourself accountable to do better. It's about understanding that revenge might burn hot, but healing lasts longer. 5 years after the gala, I was hiking in the North Cascades with Elena when my phone rang. Patricia Morrison's name appeared on the screen. Patricia, I thought you retired last year. I did, but I wanted to give you an update. Brad Whitmore died yesterday. Heart attack in a gym in Scottsdale. He was 42. The news landed with unexpected weight. Was he still running cons? As far as I know, yes. Different city, different name, but same pattern. A woman came forward after his death claiming he'd taken $90,000 from her over 2 years. Patricia paused. I wanted you to know because I thought you might feel something about it. Closure, or guilt, or satisfaction, or grief. I wasn't sure which. I don't know either, I said honestly. He was a predator. He hurt people. He hurt my wife and destroyed my marriage. But he was also human, and 42 is too young to die. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. Maybe you don't have to know. Maybe feelings don't have to make sense or be justified. Maybe you just feel them and move on. After we hung up, Elena and I sat on a fallen log, looking out over the mountain vista. Are you okay? She asked. I think so. It's strange. 5 years ago, if you'd told me Brad Whitmore would die of a heart attack, I would have felt satisfaction, justice, in some cosmic sense. But now I just feel sad. Not for him exactly, for the whole situation, for all the damage he caused, for the fact that he never changed, never got better, never became someone who could stop hurting people. Revenge is wildfire, Elena said quietly. Healing is a garden. Someone told me that once. I looked at her, surprised. She smiled. It was in one of the articles about your case. Some therapist who was interviewed about public shaming and accountability. She said revenge burns hot and fast and destroys everything in its path. But healing is slow, intentional cultivation of new growth. Both have their place, but only one creates something that lasts. Do you think what I did was revenge or healing? I think it was both. You burned down something toxic, then you planted something new. The question is, what grew? I thought about the past 5 years. The therapy, the self-reflection, the hard work of becoming someone capable of healthy intimacy. The relationship I'd built with Elena, based on honesty and presence instead of provision and sacrifice. The life I'd created that included surgery, but wasn't defined by it. Something better, I said. Something that couldn't have grown in the shadow of what was there before. Then maybe the fire was necessary. We sat in silence for a while, watching clouds move across mountain peaks, listening to the wind in the pines. Later that evening, back in Seattle, I pulled out a box from the back of my closet. Inside were the remnants of my marriage to Sarah. Photos, letters, small mementos from 18 years together. I looked through them, allowing myself to remember the good parts without denying the bad. The young couple who'd believed in each other's dreams. The struggles that had bonded us. The gradual erosion of connection as I'd worked more, and she drifted further. The final implosion that had forced both of us to face truths we'd been avoiding. Then I put the box in the fireplace and lit it. Not with rage, not with satisfaction, just with acceptance. The past burned. Paper and photos curling into ash, smoke rising up the chimney and disappearing into the night sky. Elena sat beside me on the couch, her hand in mine, saying nothing because nothing needed to be said. When the fire died down to embers, I felt lighter. Not because I'd gotten revenge or won some moral victory, but because I'd finally let go of the need to make sense of it all, to justify my choices, to prove I was right. Sometimes the only closure you get is the closure you create for yourself. Sometimes transformation means accepting that you'll never fully understand why things happened the way they did. Sometimes healing means making peace with the fact that some questions don't have answers. And sometimes, just sometimes, the greatest revenge is living well, loving honestly, and becoming someone who learned from their pain instead of being defined by it. I'm 62 now, the same age I was when Sarah told me I wasn't welcome at Christmas dinner. But I'm not the same person. I retired from surgery 3 years ago, transitioning into teaching and consulting. I train the next generation of surgeons at UW Medical School, focusing not just on technical skills, but on the human side of medicine. Presence, empathy, the work of connection that saves lives surgery can't reach. Elena and I got married 5 years ago in a small ceremony at the Arboretum, where we'd had our third date. No drama, no performance, just honest vows between two people who'd both learned the hard way that marriage requires presence, not perfection. Sarah sends a Christmas card every year, always tasteful, always brief, always a gentle reminder that we were once important to each other and that our ending, however painful, led both of us to better beginnings. She remarried 2 years ago to a high school teacher. They volunteer together at a food bank. Her Instagram shows a life of quiet purpose. I'm happy for her. Brad Whitmore's Wikipedia page is short. American personal trainer, known for a 2020 scandal involving multiple clients. Below that, a list of citations to news articles about the gala. His legacy is a cautionary tale, a warning, a reminder that charm without character leads to destruction. The women who testified have scattered into their own futures. Some marriages survived, some didn't. But all of them, according to periodic updates from Patricia, emerged stronger for having told their truths. Ashley Henderson runs a nonprofit supporting women who've experienced manipulation and financial abuse. Her husband, David, is on the board. They have 2 children now. Melissa Tran remarried and moved to California. Her ex-husband, James, occasionally sends her flowers on her birthday. An odd tradition, but one that speaks to complicated forgiveness. Victoria Brennan and her husband stayed together and wrote a book about rebuilding trust after infidelity. It became a modest bestseller. As for me, I teach, I love, I hike, I read, I garden. I'm learning to play piano, badly, but with enthusiasm. I spend time with friends. I go to therapy not because I'm in crisis, but because growth is ongoing. And every December 15th, I take the day off and go hiking, not to commemorate the gala or celebrate revenge, but to remember that transformation is possible, that pain can lead to growth, and that the person you become after crisis
matters more than the person you were before. Students sometimes ask me about the gala.
The story has taken on a life of its own, exaggerated, mythologized, turned into a cautionary tale about public shaming and viral justice. I tell them the truth. What I did was necessary and destructive in equal measure. It stopped a predator.
It validated victims. It also caused pain to innocent people and satisfied my need for control when I felt powerless. I don't regret it, but I wouldn't recommend it.
There are better ways to heal than public immolation, even when the person burning deserves the flames. So, what should we do, they ask, when someone betrays us?
When the system fails and there's no justice, you focus on becoming someone who can survive betrayal without being destroyed by it. You build a life that matters more than the life you lost. You forgive yourself for being human, and you give yourself permission to heal in whatever way works for you, quietly or loudly, quickly or slowly, alone or with help. And revenge. Revenge is wildfire. It burns hot and fast and consumes everything. But healing? I pause, thinking about Elena waiting at home, about the garden we've planted together, about the life we've built from honest foundations. Healing is something you cultivate. It's slow, intentional work, but what you grow lasts longer than what you burn. They nod, take notes, think about their own future betrayals and how they'll handle them. I hope they do better than I did. I hope they learn earlier that presence matters, that love requires tending, that work is what you do, but not who you are. But if they don't, if they find themselves standing in their own pool houses, discovering their own betrayals, facing their own moments of explosive choice, I hope they remember this. You can't control what other people do to you, but you can control who you become in response to it. Choose carefully. Your future depends